In the flicker of a single eye, the world changed. What was once hidden in the dark corners of desire found a new home. On glowing screens, in lonely rooms, behind locked doors. We became a generation of watchers, not lovers, not participants. Just eyes staring through the black mirror, mistaking watching for living.
Hitchcock saw deeper than fear. He knew the real danger wasn't the knife in the hand, but the fracture in the mind. The way a gaze can turn into a cage when the pleasure of control settles into its home in the dark. Tonight we pull back the curtain as we step into the motel of the modern mind.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
And we remember what Hitchcock saw coming long before we ever pressed play.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Porn Free Millennial Podcast. I'm your host Mac, and as you can see, I have somebody special with me, Dr. Gregory Borse. And where are we, Dr. Borse?
We're in Monticello, Arkansas, at the 102-acre former private hunting club where I now live with my bride. And we are sitting in the lake house, which back in the day was constructed by a congressman named Jordan, and we have heard rumors that he hosted President Clinton here on several occasions, so it's a little bit of a storied place.
Yeah, and Dr. Borse and I, we've done a few podcasts together, and he was kind enough to host me and invite me over. I was doing my road trip as I was talking about last podcast, and he's like, hey, how about you stop by and we'll host you. And it's been a great time. I've been here since Thursday night. We're recording on a Saturday. I think it's October 10th, 12th, one of those things.
We've been having so much fun, we lost track of time.
But yeah, it's Saturday today. And so this is the second year that we're doing a Halloween themed podcast. And last year we did Porn as a Vampire with you and your close friend Cale Zeldin. You went to college together.
Yeah, we went to LSU together when I was working on my doctorate, and he was working on his master's. And Cale's brilliant. You should check out his YouTube channel and his Substack. It's Zeldin, Z-E-L-D-E-N.
And I think it's called The Underneath.
Yes, and I went back and looked at our Halloween special from last year, and I think it holds up really well. It was quite good. And Cale and I bouncing off each other with you.
Yeah.
It works really, really nicely.
Yeah, that was a great time, and
Yeah.
Definitely give that episode a listen. And as I was talking to Dr. Borse and thinking about podcast ideas, it so happened to be that Dr. Borse, you teach philosophy, English, but you also teach film class.
Right.
And that kind of came up when we were talking about, when we did the episode about The Exorcist.
Right.
You told me, hey, I actually am teaching this in my class. And we did an episode on that, but I think it was talked about a little bit in our episode with the Porn as a Vampire, and probably in the Exorcist episode, you always bring in an aspect of the movie that we're going to discuss today, Psycho. So it's the 1960 Alfred Hitchcock, probably the most influential film, one of the influential films of all time, but definitely in horror.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And that's what we're going to talk about today for our episode.
Yeah, and so a little bit of background on how the film came about. Robert Bloch wrote a novelization of the story of Ed Gein. And for those of you who are interested, you can do the deep dive on Ed Gein. He was a real serial killer. He is the basis for the Norman Bates character here, but Hitchcock did some very interesting things to completely change the character from the novel and the actual guy to who we see Anthony Perkins playing. But there's currently a documentary out on Netflix called Monster, the Ed Gein story. I can't remember the actor who plays him. It's a great performance. The overall limited series is beautifully filmed, beautifully acted, and self-indulgent, a little bit over the top. And also does some very interesting things because it interweaves his story with how Hitchcock was making the film later on. And then in the third act, it intertwines actual serial killers like Richard Speck into this sort of strange fantasy, and that's why I call it self-indulgent.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, it almost feels sympathetic to Ed Gein, who was always a misfit, always didn't understand why he did the things that he did. So I recommend it with a caveat that it's not for kids. It is graphic.
Right.
It is disturbing, and it throws a sort of a light on Hitchcock's genius. Now, he had just made North by Northwest with Cary Grant, and if you're a Hitchcock fan, you know that film. It is, an iconic graphic film. And so when Psycho was coming out, the big question is, what the heck is Hitchcock doing? But I saw an interview with someone who commented on this, who said that, Hitch realized that in the late 1950s, in the early 60s, film was changing. And it's almost like Hitch said, okay, I'm going to show these amateurs how to do it. This new kind of, because if you think about the way films were changing in the 60s and then the early 70s with Easy Rider and those things, there's a real sea change. The Western is going away. And a lot of people credit Hitchcock with the first slasher film. It is the first wrong turn movie, which became a staple trope for the slasher film in the 70s and the early 80s. Right. There are two films that came out just about simultaneously in Great Britain. One called The Horror of the Black Museum, which is sometimes credited as the first serial killer movie. And then there was another one called Peeping Tom, which I do think Hitchcock knew about.
Okay.
I've seen it. It's very, very B-grade movie. It's not high quality like you noticed when we watched Psycho last night. Unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah. It was
unbelievable.
Yeah.
But Peeping Tom's very interesting because it's about a serial killer who is a professional photographer who literally films the killing of his victims because he's mounted a bayonet on the end of his movie camera.
Oh my gosh.
And so, it got banned in Great Britain.
Wow.
But it's called Peeping Tom. And we're gonna, in our conversation today, we're gonna see some connections between what Hitchcock is doing with the camera in this film and what he's implying about the audience of this kind of film. The audience gets implicated. But like I said, it's based on the novel by Robert Bloch, B-L-O-C-K, if you want to look that up. And it was given to Hitchcock by his daughter Alice. Alice is in the film. She plays the secretary in the real estate office. And she had read it, and she gave it to her dad when he was going back to Great Britain for a project. She said, I think you need to read this. And by the time he got to London, he called her and said, get the rights. I'm going to do this.
Wow.
The studio that made North by Northwest, and I don't remember which one it was, that he was under contract with, didn't want to have anything to do with the movie. They were like, there's no way there's an audience for.
Really?
Yeah. Well, partly because in Robert Bloch's book, the Ed Gein, fictionalized Ed Gein character is a creepy, ugly, sweaty, pimply, drives a van and tries to lure kids with candy kind of guy.
Okay.
Like that,
That's like kind of Gacy?
Yes.
Or John Wayne Gacy, is that his name?
Yeah. And
that's what I think in my head.
Well, as far as the physical type is concerned, yes, except think short, really short.
Okay.
But like trench coat guy, that kind of guy, the guy that we were, if you're my age, we were warned about in the 1970s. Don't talk to strangers, don't go help somebody find a puppy in a park.
Right.
And the brilliance of Hitchcock was to completely rewrite the character type. And then the casting of Anthony Perkins, I think, was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Along with Janet Leigh as Marion Crane. So that's a little bit of the backstory. And because his movie studio, didn't want to have anything to do with the movie, he was making a show at the time called Alfred Hitchcock Presents, which I highly recommend if you guys can find it. It's really fun. It's kind of a competitor of like Twilight Zone. And also very well done. And he plays the host. So the way that show starts every time is you see his caricatured silhouette, and then his shadow walks into the frame, fills the silhouette.
I think I remember watching this with my dad.
Yeah, and then the lights come up, and he turns to the camera and he says, "Good evening." I'm sorry, that sounded like somebody else.
Good evening.
Yeah, I should have worked on my Hitchcock. I used to do a pretty good Hitchcock.
Okay. And he's British, right?
Yes, he's British by birth. I think he had dual citizenship. He ended his career, mainly here, but he was very established, and so this movie was kind of a shocker that he would do something like this. But because the movie studio didn't want to have anything to do with it, he realized, well, wait a minute, I have a television studio that I am under contract with, so I'll just film it in black and white, because television was black and white at the time.
Okay.
Movies were color.
Okay, so this...
You see what I mean? This is in that transitional period. Color television hasn't become a thing yet.
Gotcha.
And so he realized, wait a minute, there's so many things I can do with black and white.
Yeah.
For this movie, it fits perfectly. And I think you agree after watching it last night.
Oh, totally.
Because I was mentioning to Mac that Psycho is so knit into our DNA,
right,
that we all kind of walk around thinking that we've actually seen the film. Mm-hmm. But even if you've seen the film, I feel like you need to go back and watch it again. We actually had to try to watch it twice because I was talking so much, as you can tell, that we didn't finish it. We got 5 minutes in.
Yeah, I got here Thursday night, and we're like, all right, let's watch Psycho and all that stuff. And we ended up staying up pretty late, but we had a good time talking and everything. But we were trying to watch Psycho, and I think we were about 5 minutes. We got 5 minutes through, and that's why I think today's going to be such a treat for everybody to listen to, because just of your expertise, your knowledge, and like your passion about the movie.
Yeah,
and we were talking. And I'm like, okay, I think we should just watch this, tomorrow. And so, just a little bit of background on that. Where we watched it was outside of my RV.
Parked right over there.
Just parked right over there. We had I was in my hammock, and Dr. Borse was in my camping chair. That's a rocking chair.
Yeah, it was really nice, very comfortable.
So we had an outdoor TV. We had a nice Bluetooth speaker.
We had some toddies.
And
a promise from me that I would just shut my mouth, which I kind of didn't, but I didn't overwhelm the film.
You did a good job. Yeah, it was some good commentary throughout, and maybe we'll do that in the future, like a commentary type video, because that was fun. We were watching the video outside, and we're under the stars. The dogs are all nestled up, and I just thought like the mood of it was just so cool as watching Psycho, and just outside in the elements. A lot like I feel like the scenery of the movie in a way.
Yeah.
Just kind of felt like out in the woods, off the beaten path kind of thing. And like what you were saying was, I think as we were talking about watching this movie, I felt like I had an idea of what it was about, and I had this idea of the famous scene in the shower, the famous scene with the grandmother when they discover that. And I had these images in my mind, but as we started to watch the movie in the opening scene, I just said, I actually don't know if I've actually seen this before, or if I have.
You were probably pretty young.
I was pretty young.
Yeah.
And that point really resounds of it had such cultural impact.
Yeah.
And everyone feels like they've seen it. But like you said, and if you're listening right now, definitely recommend that you watch this movie and maybe hit pause right now and go watch it, and then come back
for a bit,
and then listen to us talk about it, because watching this movie with somebody that teaches film, I learned so much just about how movies are made, but also like the symmetry and what he's trying to show you on the screen. And I think this is why we wanted to talk about Psycho.
Yeah.
And with the Porn-Free Millennial, the podcast, like the theme of it, right, talking about porn and culture, porn in our lives, there's so many parallels that we started to talk about as we were watching the movie of Hitchcock, like you've told me, he was almost giving us like a warning of what is to come. And now when we watch it in 2025, where the term incel comes up, and I brought that term up to you when we were preparing and talking about what we wanted to discuss today, the stereotype of those men that are basically involuntarily celibate, that are angry at women, that are addicted to porn, that don't want to go out and date, that have this nihilistic view. Obviously, they're not like Norman Bates, but there's parallels to show like where that type of maybe nihilism or that when you're in that state where you're not really looking at the world and you're not really in the world and you're on the outside and you're almost like that voyeur, you're peeping in. That can lead to a lot of destructive tendencies.
You know, in the age of social media, I think we can't underscore enough that Hitchcock is hinting at what the dangers are of isolation.
Right.
In a world that seems so available to everybody, where social media masks as a thing that brings people together, but in many ways it's doing exactly the opposite.
Right.
It's putting people in their basements, on their devices, walking around with their tracking devices all the time. So they're never in the world. They're someplace else, but they're also weirdly totally alone.
Right.
And so I think that can do something to your headspace. That's why I like the expression on social media where people get frustrated and say, you know what? Put down your phones, take off your shoes, go feel some grass,
right.
and you know, and bask in the sun a little bit. One of the things I love about having moved out here is I've never been a country boy. I would never strike anybody as a country boy, and as a result of my moving out here, I had to buy my very first pair of boots in my whole life, and I'm kind of proud of it. But yeah, we moved out here with my designer shoes, and I was like, no, this isn't going to work. I'm going to have to get something to slog around in. But what's nice about it, living in the woods, you know, I don't have to set an alarm anymore. It completely reset my clock. I woke up at 7:45 this morning without an alarm and completely refreshed. Even though we were up a little bit late last night, but it was, you know, and so I feel for people who end up in this sort of Norman Bates-ish kind of world where they're just in their own head, they're isolated from other people, their interactions are minimal.
Right.
I mean, interactions like this is what I like it that we finally got to actually sit together in the same room.
Yeah.
But doing things like this too, even when you're doing it with technology, is a step better than simply being on social media all the time and just interacting with your thumbs.
Yeah, and I think that's like what really, when I was thinking about what kind of horror film we could talk about this year, like Psycho just came up because you know so much about it, but as we started to talk more, it just started to make more sense to me. And especially watching the movie, I'm like, okay, like, this is actually really relevant to today. And hopefully this podcast can be a good like warning or a commentary on hopefully challenging people that if you're stuck in that place to get out.
And also just a window into having a new appreciation for what it is films do in a culture and in a society.
Yeah.
You know, when I became an English major, I started out as a journalism major and decided I wanted to try to make myself completely useless to society, so I became an English major. and then philosophy, you know, I do philosophy too.
Yeah.
But I was surprised to discover along my studies that English as a study is very new. It's not something that we did until the University of Glasgow was the first one in Scotland to actually allow the study of its own literature, its own stories.
Right.
Before that, the medieval model was you studied the Greeks, you studied the Romans, Greek and Latin. And there's no such thing as French literature, there's no such thing as, you know. And so that was a surprise to me. And then when I started teaching film, and I've been a filmophile since I was out in LA writing for that television show. Like that's all I didn't have dates and stuff out in LA.
What television show was that?
Oh, I worked on a PBS show on physics called The Mechanical Universe. And, you know, it's just one of those happenstance things. I wrote a story as an undergraduate at the University of Dallas. My physics professor thought it was really good. Some scriptwriter had flaked. He was one of the 3 principal scientists that created the show. And had flaked on the script for gas and the temperature law. And he handed it to me and he said, do you want to take a shot at finishing this? And I was like, heck yeah, you know. Well, they ended up buying it.
Okay.
They paid me $1,500 for it. And then they offered me a job. They said, do you want to come out and be the office gopher? You can keep trying to write treatments. You can. And I ended up editing their textbook because it was a college series. It was a series that was developed at Caltech, which was, imagine that, being 20 years old and working at Caltech with the guys at the Jet Propulsion Lab, who are all this beautiful space CGI that you see today. We invented it, like for that show.
Yeah.
Like we upgraded the computer graphics that was on television at that time. It was stupendous. But long story short, because I didn't have a car, if you don't have a car in LA, you don't even live in LA. I lived in Pasadena. But I had 3 different places to rent VHS tapes within walking distance. And because I was a block from Caltech, it's a nice area of Pasadena. And so I would do my route. I get done with work, I'd go home, microwave a burrito, or walk to the pantry and get something for dinner, and then I'd walk over to one of 3, and I'd rent like 4 movies. And I just sort of, that's how I developed my love of films.
Right.
Like I would just get random stuff. And one of the things that makes me feel bad for my students today is that because of streaming, we are under the illusion that we have a huge library of things to choose from.
Sure.
But if you don't have, like if you don't know film, then you don't know what questions to ask when you're doing your search.
Yeah, what to look for.
Like, how do I find, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always encourage my students to make lists. But when I got to the University of Arkansas here in Monticello, they asked me if I would teach film, and I was like, absolutely. And the ones I ended up sort of by default choosing, I discovered like, I guess I have pretty good taste because all the films, I didn't try, but all the films that I show are Oscar winners.
Yeah.
They're legendary directors there. And I'm glad to do it for young students because they'll watch a movie like, say, Moonstruck, and which is in the 1990s.
Yeah.
Nick Cage and Cher. And you know what? I've had students say, why don't they make movies like that anymore? And I'm like, you know. But streaming actually cuts you away from the vast inventory. But the point I wanted to make about film too is that, like English, film is a very, very new form. It's only been around for 50 years?
That's true.
And it is the American art form. We invented it.
Right.
We taught the rest of the world how to do it. We were decades ahead of everybody else. If you go back and watch Citizen Kane and think about what year it came out, you'll be gobsmacked at what Orson Welles was already doing with the camera in that film. That's why it keeps coming up on the top 10 greatest films ever made. And I'm continually, and Psycho is one of those films too.
Right.
But it has the distinction of also having been wildly popular when it came out. And as you saw, after the film was over last night, I showed him the trailer that Hitchcock made that ran in the theaters, and it was hilarious. We were laughing out loud at the wit that this man has.
Yeah, just that a trailer would be made that way compared to now.
Yeah.
It's just vastly different.
Yeah, he takes you on a whole tour of the set.
Yeah.
He takes you into some of the principal rooms in which very horrible things happen, and then he always stops short of spoiling his own movie for you.
He's like, this shower, there was a mess here.
The shower, yeah.
But let's go with the next
one. And
room.
the blood.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one. Yeah. And he literally points at the toilet, the bathroom, the bathroom. And I don't know if you noticed, but in the very first shot of the film, you get an aerial shot, which today would be a drone shot, but you get a crane shot from the top of the building in Phoenix. And interestingly, his titles are the date, 11th December, and then the time is weirdly precise, 9:02 or 11:02 a.m. Right, on this day. And then the camera slowly tracks in to a window.
Right.
And then it comes through the window and it pauses right where the blinds are about that much open.
Right.
And if you look carefully in the left-hand corner, you're looking into the bathroom. You know what I mean? So the bathroom ends up being so important as an image of something, right? Of the stuff that we have to have in life, but we also seek to hide.
Right.
The dirty stuff about being human. And it just keeps getting referenced over and over. So I published a chapter in a book a few years ago on Psycho, and the title of my chapter was Money, Bloody Body, all one word, right? And then a quote, she looked like a wrong one to you. And it's about women, because this is really a paleo-feminist movie. A lot of people think he's a misogynist. He is not. He's so far ahead of his time. So I hope that helps you situate the film. It's extraordinarily important. When we get further into the conversation, we'll probably talk about the influences that I see down the road, especially in the horror genre.
Yeah.
Are just incredible.
Yeah.
Because like The Exorcist, and Psycho is one of those films that if you're going to make a slasher film or a horror film, you have to decide, what do I do about Psycho? Do I make a film and pretend it didn't exist?
Right.
Or do I go ahead and fully acknowledge it, reference it? And I think great artists end up embracing the latter.
Gotcha.
They have to reference it. I don't mean in a jokey way, but they can if they're good filmmakers.
Like pay homage.
Yeah, but there's got to be some sort of, like, for instance, John Carpenter. Is it John Carpenter?
Halloween.
Yeah, he did Halloween, but who made the movie, the Thriller video, Michael Jackson's Thriller video?
Oh, I don't know. That's a great question.
Okay, so if you guys want to go look, this is a fun little rabbit hole to go down. In the Thriller video, there's a little bit of dialogue inside the theater while they're watching the scary movie, right? And you overhear the movie. And the movie says, there's something written in blood. What does it say? I'll see you next Wednesday. And then boom, the song starts and they walk outside. And if you look at the marquee behind them as they walk away from the theater, you see that the title of the movie is, I'll see you next Wednesday. Every single one of that director's films, Spies Like Us, American Werewolf in London, every one of them has that line in it.
Interesting.
There's a poster behind, in Spies Like Us, there's a poster behind the recruiter that says, see you next Wednesday.
Huh.
There's a poster in the underground in London in American Werewolf that says, see you next Wednesday. He pauses briefly in front of it. The porn theater that he goes to meet his mauled friend in, I don't know if you've seen the film.
The American Werewolf?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it.
They go meet, the name of the porn film is See You Next Wednesday.
No way.
So I'm sitting there going, all right, what is this? I got to get to the bottom of this reference, right?
Right.
Well, I think I figured it out. I've never written an article. But I think what the director was doing was paying homage to Hitchcock.
Okay.
Because that line, see you next Wednesday, is repeated in Hitchcock's movie Notorious.
Okay.
Because two of the principals meet on a park bench on Wednesdays a couple of times in the film, and Cary Grant's character says to him at the end of the conversation, because he's a spy,
So see
you next Wednesday.
Oh.
So I think it's this director's stand-in for the cameo, because if you don't know Hitchcock, you know Hitchcock appears in every one of his films.
Right.
It's a fun drinking game. Who can spot Hitchcock? He's gonna be somewhere.
Yeah, right.
In the background, in a crowd, walking through a room, you know. And I pointed out to you, you already knew where he was, probably, but there he is. He's standing outside that window.
He's right there.
You know, he's right there. So,
So I was wondering, so maybe so we got a little bit of the background behind it in a way. Give like a quick, like, let's just say someone doesn't end up watching this movie and they're listening still. Just real quick, like 5-minute, start to finish.
what's the plot?
Like, what's the plot?
The,
That kind of thing.
the plot is a woman who is having an intimate relationship that is actually genuine with a divorced man. They're not married. So that first scene is a kind of a shocker for several reasons. She works at a real estate office. She comes into possession of $40,000, which in today's money would be something over $800,000. She has a headache. She says to her boss, do you mind if I just bank the cash and go home? It's a Friday. I've got a headache and I just don't feel well. And he's like, of course, take me. So she drives away, she goes home, and then we realize that the money is this enticement. And her calculation in her head, you can tell, is, if I took this money and I drove from Phoenix to Fairvale, California, and got with my boyfriend Sam,
Right.
we could fade off into the sunset, make our new life, disappear, and be golden. And so she absconds with the money. And along the way, she has doubts about what she's doing the whole time. And then classically, she makes a wrong turn in a really, really driving rainstorm. and she ends up at the Bates Motel. And at that point, the entire film that you've been watching for something like 28 minutes or 25 minutes, it suddenly doesn't look like the film that you thought you were coming to the theater to see.
Sure.
Because the film looks like a pretty standard, film noir, femme fatale, woman's in trouble.
Right.
She can't tell the entire truth about what she's done. She's going to need help. There might be a private detective, because those are those guys that they operate on the borderline between criminality and law, right? Like bounty hunters. They can do things that cops can't do. They can keep things private. Maybe charges aren't going to be brought. And we do see a private detective in the film. But that leads to the famous shower scene, which there's a great documentary on I'd like you guys to check out called 7852, which is a reference. It's on Netflix as well, I believe, or maybe Prime. It's a reference to the shower scene had 78 different camera setups and 52 cuts, which I don't know if you want to count the number of knife motions in the scene, but maybe it's 52 to 52. For every cut of the camera, there's a cut of the knife.
That's amazing.
And so at that point, you have to understand the original audience would have been totally turned upside down.
Right.
Because now, Marion Crane, Janet Leigh was the famous actress in the movie. It was heavily advertised as a Janet Leigh joint. People didn't really know Anthony Perkins at the time. He had been nominated for Best Supporting Actor a couple of years before, maybe a year before. So he was starting to rise, and he was starting to be being looked at as a potential leading man. He's got that look about him.
Yeah, for sure.
But this movie ruined that. And there are a couple of Hollywood stories behind that too that are actually related to Ed Gein, and because the same thing happened to the character that played Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs. His career was ruined for 10 years.
Sure.
And then my wife and I were watching Monk one night. She said, "That's Buffalo Bill," and I could only recognize him from his voice. I was like, "Oh, that is him. I'm glad he's back." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when you do such a role, you become instantly associated with that role and that role alone.
Kind of like Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter.
Exactly, and so you have to either hope that somebody's gonna, or be just hopelessly typecast. Anthony Perkins didn't work again meaningfully for 20 years, and then to jumpstart his career in the late 1980s, he made Psycho 2. He directed it, and it's really good.
Wow.
The other ones aren't. But Psycho 2, it stands up. He did a great job. He understood that character. He understood that world. So the rest of the film, it shifts. Marion Crane was the main protagonist. She's the driver of the plot. And then all of a sudden it shifts to Norman Bates. And the audience is going, what the heck am I looking at? And then the sister shows up. And the boyfriend shows up looking for Marion. So in a weird way, Marion continues to drive the film.
Right.
Even though she's been disappeared from that world.
Right.
And then the other dominant female in the configuration is Vera. Excuse me, I said Vera Farmiga because she plays her in Bates Motel, which I highly recommend, which is the series based on Hitchcock's Psycho. But is Norman's mother. And her first name is Norma. And so she is this sort of haunting. We peek at her, we see her, right. We hear her,
right.
For the rest of the film,
right.
Until it comes to its conclusion, where finally what Norman's been doing, the gig is up. He gets caught. And interestingly, for those of you who think that Hitchcock is a misogynist, the men in this film, including Norman, are really secondary to the female characters. Vera Miles, the sister who plays the sister,
right.
Lila, she's the driver of the second half of the movie as far as the investigation is concerned. Sam is her helper. Sam Loomis is the boyfriend, but he's not the driver. The film is completely driven by three women characters: Marion, Lily, and then Norma. And it's almost as if Norman's character is an incel who's caught between these more dominating forces. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And that's to take nothing away from the role he plays in everything and the brilliant portrayal by Anthony Perkins. It's one of the best acting jobs I've ever seen.
Totally.
And again, when you put together the kind of shots and the lighting that Hitchcock does, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I think something as you watch the movie, right, and you see the initial murder happen to Crane, it looks like it's the mother doing it.
Yes.
Like, it looks like it's the mother doing it. The same thing that happens to the private investigator.
Yes.
It looks like it's the mother's doing it.
And Hitchcock is a tricky-dicky filmmaker.
Right.
In many ways, he cheats in this film, if you watch it carefully. Because when Marion Crane has taken the money and she's on her way to Fairvale, we get to hear her thoughts inside her head.
Right.
Which is one of those beautiful things that movie magic can do. When you peek through the hotel window where she and Sam Loomis have just had sex in the middle of the day, which is a shock to a 1950s-oriented American audience about sex.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, no, we're Victorian about sex. You know, you don't have sex except with your wife, and you turn off the lights, and we don't, you know, during the day, two unmarried people, you know.
Like, it's incredibly scandalous.
It's very scandalous. But what's great about it is even in that scene, Marion is the dominant character. She's the one that says to Sam, let's get married. He doesn't ask her. And he says, okay. No matter how bad it would be if we got married, let's do it. And it's really kind of beautiful and way ahead of its time. And Marion represents to a male-dominated traditional culture something that is dangerous. You know, an independent woman who is willing to make decisions for her own benefit. Somebody who has sex for pleasure,
Right.
which is kind of not allowed. And that's why the Alice Hitchcock character is so funny in their scenes.
Right.
Because she offers her tranquilizers and said, my husband was ready to kill me when he found out my mother gave this to me on our wedding night. I'm like, why? Well, because she was a virgin, and sex is the marital duty. It's not for pleasure.
Right.
It's because that's what you have to do.
Wow.
And so we're in a seat, this long before the sexual revolution, right? Look at what Hitchcock's doing. In 1960, he's looking forward to what's coming in the culture, right? And it is going to cause problems. I'm not making a judgment about it. I'm just looking at the film and I'm saying, wow.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And so in one way, you could almost look at Marion Crane's murder as like the forces of the universe punishing her for being willing to chafe against the status quo,
Right.
for women.
Right.
And you notice the film noir, there are all these slaps in the background. There are all these vertical lines. There are all these bars. It's like, and there's a conversation between her and Norman Bates about being in cages. There are two individuals that bond when they meet because they feel like they're equal to each other, that they're trapped in cages. And in fact, that's what initially attracts Norman to her.
Right.
That he feels like they are simpatico.
Right.
She gets it. She's an independent woman. She's doing what society says you're not allowed to do. My question is, what has Norman been doing that you're not supposed to be doing in society? Is it just killing people? Is there, you know what I mean?
Right.
Is there something more to it? And what your viewers need to know in my thumbnail, because I interrupted myself, is that at the very end, when Norman is now apprehended, a psychiatrist comes out.
Right.
And he explains to everybody what Norman's problem was. That he killed his mother, he taxidermied her, he lived with her, but he couldn't handle the fact that he committed matricide, and so he would think and speak for her, even to the point later on of dressing up with a cheap wig and in her dresses.
When he was committing the murders.
And other times, having conversations with mom, having dinner with her. Sometimes he would dress up with her and sit. So Bates Motel does a great job with this because they just shift to a thing where we all know that Norma is dead, but the young Norman Bates is having dinner with her and she's berating him from the other side of the table. And we know she's not really there, but in his head, it's played like he thinks she really is there.
Right.
And it's played off at the end of the film to be the explanation that Norman was so guilty for killing his mom and her lover that he just made up this fiction that she wasn't dead. Stole her body from her grave, stuffed it, preserved it as best he could, and lived with her. And then the psychiatrist said, but Norma was so cloying and insanely jealous of Norman, and he of her, that any time he had a sexual attraction to another woman, the mother would rise up and ensure that he could not consummate his sexual desire, which is the explanation for what happened to Marion in the shower scene. That's why she gets killed. I actually think that is not the right explanation for the film, for a variety of reasons. It's a good one, but it does mean that you have to simply accept Norman's explanation to the psychiatrist as true.
Right.
And I'm not sure we can do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but that's the thumbnail of the plot. But there's so many things that Hitchcock does along the way that are just brilliant.
Right.
That I think we should sort of go back to the beginning and kind of unpack.
Right a little bit.
So the movie opens with that voyeuristic scene implicating you and me. So that's kind of the connection to porn.
I think so, yeah.
Porn makes us voyeurs. Film allows us what I call the impossible view. It allows us to see things that in the normal, everyday existence of you and me, that we're not only can't see, but really aren't supposed to see. So film itself, not just porn, traffics in what Shakespeare would call the obscene all the time, because we get to be the camera. And we get to watch people do things that they think they're doing in secret, and they're not.
Right.
And so I think that long crane shot and that dolly in, as it were, in the air at the beginning of the film is like him implicating us. Like we're leaning forward. Like, what am I going? He just made me into the peeping Tom.
Right.
I literally am the peeping Tom in the first scene of the movie.
Right.
And I remember, and that should annoy us in one sense, but he does it so brilliantly. Like, this is the stuff you don't know goes on behind closed doors.
Sure.
But all films routinely do that. I think Hitchcock was the first one to notice that sort of negative side of what filmmaking, how filmmaking operates to relate itself to our culture and to the audience and to their psychological desires for things that are maybe. And just for you guys to know, obscene literally means it's a stage indicator in a play. And obscene literally means that which cannot be shown on stage, that which is off stage.
Gotcha.
So when you read Shakespeare plays or see them, you'll notice that you never see a wedding. Well, that's because Christians and Catholics and even Protestants during Shakespeare's time would have found it absolutely obscene, the way we use the word, to show a sacrament on stage. Because that's to make a mockery of the divine. You don't do that.
Right.
So they were religious enough still in Shakespeare's time that it was just standard practice. You don't show that stuff. You could show female breasts on stage. You know, the Greeks have been showing nudity. You could do that. That wasn't obscene. But a sacrament? Something that was, right? Or actual sexual union? No, because that's supposed to remain between two private people in, a sacred union.
Right.
Obviously, we don't live in that world anymore.
Far from it.
And I think that's partly what Hitchcock was indicating. Like, this is what's coming. We're all turning into a man who takes a picture off the wall in his office, and you get that tight shot of an eye looking through a hole.
But instead of that, it's I'm pulling out my phone late at night, or I'm going on my laptop.
Right.
Alone in my room, door locked, and I'm taking a peek in at whatever the porn is, or whatever that is. And like you were talking about, that voyeuristic tendency, I think like today, like you can look back at that time and it would be so scandalous.
Yeah.
But it happens, if you look at statistics with men at least, it's like 80% or so is watch porn
in the last month or something of that nature.
Well, you watch the numbers change, and I promise you that within the next decade, the numbers will be exactly the same for women.
And that number's going up.
Yes.
It's like shooting up.
Yeah.
And so, like you're talking about with Hitchcock, talking about the voyeuristic and maybe what's to come, we live in this day and age now to where you have to like opt out not to be a voyeur.
Right.
And that's really and that could be a voyeur of anything.
Yeah.
It could be a voyeur of just looking at people's lives through social media.
Yeah.
And it used to be on Facebook or even MySpace as a millennial to where you would see people posting on social media. And that was kind of I feel like the start of it a little bit to where you'd look at people and it was initially seemed like pretty, I would say, innocent to where, oh, hey, so-and-so's going on this vacation with their family.
Right.
And so-and-so's doing this and that. But I think as the incentives have increased to show your best life and to show the best parts of yourself, as you're a voyeur in that, I think you start to breed in that emotion or that internalization where you are, I think, looking at the world a little bit through a nihilistic lens, or you're comparing yourself to people, or you're drawing conclusions about people or the world that maybe not be, they're not accurate.
And I do think it can become nihilistic, but it's also extraordinarily narcissistic
That's true, right?
In the sense of Narcissus, right? The beautiful man who's punished for his vanity by being turned into a flower that can only gaze at itself in the reflective pool because it grows along the water. That's his punishment. And so what is it that people are looking for on TikTok? They're looking for themselves. Do you see what I mean? What they see is themselves. So, like, maybe when I was younger, you had these few rarefied talents in basketball in high school that you would ask, you know, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to become a pro basketball player, right? And I meet those guys at my university all the time, and I warn them. I'm like, look at the numbers. How many Division II people get picked up in the draft? Like, it's a number. Go look at it, and then think to yourself, all right, what am I really doing here? You know what I mean? What am I really doing here? But the number of kids who are in the 8th grade, my wife teaches 8th grade, that have had smartphones in their palms their entire lives, right? That say, I'm just going to go on TikTok or Instagram and I'm going to make bank. You know what I mean? I'm going to become rich and famous that way.
Like Mr. Beast.
Yeah, and then you watch television and you know, the Golden Bachelor and the Real Housewives of, right?
Right.
And what are you looking at there? You're looking at these people that crave celebrity and notoriety any way they can possibly get it. That think that this is the thing, and they're already. It's so sad to me. The Golden Bachelor, every single person on that show has exceeded their use-by date. You know what I mean? For what they want. With these reality shows that have especially these older people on them, it makes me think of a picture I have in my office that was taken the year 1992 that I was interviewed by Barbara Walters as one of the first 20-somethings. I was invited out to New York, and we filmed for 2 days at ABC News Studios, and they aired it as an hour-long standalone about what makes 20-somethings or Gen Xers tick.
Yeah.
Pretty cool experience. But around that same time, my sister-in-law, who's a very accomplished photographer, came out and took a picture of me and my oldest daughter, Elizabeth, when she was 1. So, you know, I've got these brilliantly white, straight teeth, really good hair. You know, when I was out in LA, they offered me the job to stay out there, and I was still in school, and I literally, when the project manager was saying, we know you're not done with college yet, but would you like to stay for another 2.5 years?
Yeah, right.
And I joke now that I had a vision of myself getting spit out the ass end of the gay porn industry like in about 6 months, and I'm like, no, I'm going back to Dallas, because I wasn't out there because I wanted to be on camera.
Yeah.
You know, I've always been a writer at heart, and I just wasn't, all of that whole world, superficiality is, you know, just scared me. But the thing that strikes me about these shows that we're watching now with the Real Housewives and all of those is that these people are beyond their sell-by day.
Right.
And I have that picture in my office, and I actually just pulled it out. Socrates has a saying somewhere that, it is our responsibility not to teach our children how to live well, but to live well so that they can die well. And in order to illustrate the depth of meaning of that expression, I pulled that picture out and I brought it into class and I said, this is me when I was you, but you get to be this for a heck of a lot longer than you get to be this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So learn how to do this well.
Right.
And that's why I don't watch any of those shows, because I'm looking at people that don't know how to do it.
Yeah, they're like stuck in that young, they're trying to be young, but
they're trying to be younger than they are. And
Right.
I could be accused of the same thing, because I don't dress my age, I don't dress old, but when I got cancer, I let the hair go.
Right.
And my kids were so happy, they were like, yeah, silver fox. That's the way you should go.
Right.
Because I'm 61.
Right.
And so I feel like, and I haven't had any work done. I haven't, I'm just like, this is the way I look. Just have to embrace it. But it's the other reason that I ended up going on to get a PhD is one, because I love this. This is all I want. Like, how do I trick somebody into paying me to do this?
Right.
But two, it's because I did realize that you get to be old for a long time.
Yeah.
So you need to have something that you can do, that you can do beyond what is going to be granted to you by youth, and perpetual beauty. And so I think when we go back to taking a look at the voyeuristic aspect of social media, that Hitchcock is hinting at with what film allows us and implicates us in, I think that is actually having a net negative effect on a lot of young people, because it's giving them a false view of reality, and it routinely objectifies the object of your gaze, right, and it dehumanizes them, and it dehumanizes you. So that even in the shower scene, what does Norman have to do in order to kill her?
Well, there has to be she can't see him. Obviously, there's the shower curtain.
Right.
I mean, he dresses up like a different person.
So he has to pretend to be a person that has had absolutely no relationship with her.
Right.
Which dehumanizes her.
Right.
He pretends to be somebody else who's doing this, if the psychiatrist is right, for an entirely other reason.
Right.
Because Norman has had a fairly intimate and revealing conversation with her prior
Exactly.
to his deciding to kill her.
Right.
Now, when we're watching the film originally, we think it's his mom that came in and did it.
Right.
But we find out at the end of the film that it was him.
Right.
So now we have to recast. What did I see?
Right.
Why would he kill her?
Right.
Now, if the psychiatrist is to be credited, he killed her because Norma took over his personality, and which means Norman's not really to blame.
Right.
He's just a sick person
Right.
that needs help.
Right.
Which is another thing this film issues into our culture.
Right, which we see that a lot.
Right. That evil is a pathology, it's a sickness, it's an error of nature, and human science can figure out how to fix it. So by the time we get to Halloween, every one of the first 3 films has some bald psychiatrist jumping out at the end, who is the psychiatrist or psycho, yelling, don't hurt him.
Michael!
Yeah, don't hurt him. We can
Right.
get him to the hospital and study him so that we can help him and other people like him. And so that's an interesting shift in our culture.
Yeah.
That we've decided that evil doesn't exist as an individual choice. It's a mistake. And so how do you treat mistakes? We don't punish them. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
You nurture them.
Right.
And you tell people, and you stroke their egos and say, no, you're not a bad person. It's just that, and that's what the Ed Gein special kind of does at the end. And I think we should rightfully feel pretty uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
Because is that what evil is? Is just a sickness? I'm sure in some cases it absolutely is. And I wouldn't deny that. But as The Silence of the Lamb later teaches us in the 1990s, sometimes evil is a choice.
Right.
And the person that's doing it, Hannibal Lecter, does it because he's good at it and he likes it.
Right.
Which is why anybody does anything well.
Right.
They like it.
Right.
And so I think we do get a whole 25, 30 years of the mark of Norman Bates as the model for evil. In Jason, abused little boy with a domineering mother, there's Norman Bates again in Friday the 13th. Or Nightmare on Elm Street, the guy that's haunting everybody's dreams is a pedophile that got thrown into a furnace by the parents seeking revenge on their families, right? So he's got a motivation now, but also he was a sicko. All the way through all of those, right? And they exhaust themselves in the early 80s. And then finally we get Scream, who kind of puts paid to all of it.
Right.
Because the killers in Scream, they just do it for a lark.
Right.
They just do it because they think it would be fun.
Right.
Which is also a commentary on what media and culture and society is doing to our youth.
Right.
If they could become so callous.
Right.
Now, when Scream came out, we don't quite have You've Got Mail. It's right in that generation. You know what I mean? The internet is now becoming a thing. Cell phone, not yet. But as soon as we make that transition from the internet on a modem in an office, see, there you've still got some safety valves.
Yeah.
The person still has to creep down into their basement.
Right.
It makes noise.
Right.
You're going to have that caricature of the mom going, "What are you doing down there?" You know,
right?
What I mean?
You gotta wait for the internet.
Whereas
you have to wait like 5 minutes for the internet to connect.
Right. Where our smartphones have just completely erased the possibility of that.
Right.
Which is really scary.
Yeah, there's no barrier.
Right. There's nothing in between me and that.
Right.
To stop.
Right.
And so it's going to take a newfound kind of rejection of what my son, and I love it that my kids, they're expressing things about it. It's not that they don't use it, but my son is like, it's garbage. The internet is garbage.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now he's got kids.
Right.
And he's especially attuned to that.
Yeah, exactly.
He just had an episode a couple of weeks ago with his older daughter, who's like in the first grade or kindergarten, and the teacher thought that it would be funny to reference the number 6, 7 to illustrate something in class. And he said, "Dad, you're not going to know the reference at all.
Yeah.
But I'll explain it to you. There's this rapper who's like 19 years old in Memphis who's currently serving a sentence for murder.
Okay.
Who just blew up on TikTok with this really bad rap that has this 6, 7 reference. And then what somebody did is they took it and they made it a meme. And so like you got Curry, the basketball player, in the meme, being asked like, how many 3-pointers did you make in the first half? And he's like, I don't know, 6, 7. And everybody thinks it's so funny. But he said the reference.
Sorry.
You know what I mean? The reference is to something that a kindergarten teacher should not be sharing. And I said, well, first of all, she probably isn't even aware of where it comes from, because the pedigree gets lost in social media immediately.
You're both.
But I do think it's going to take a new generation to reconsider all of these things, and how technology itself does implicate us in a way to participate. I don't know, blandly or passively in evil. Because the voyeurism thing also too gives us arm's length from the bad thing that we're doing.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? It gives us, we get to pretend that we're not really doing it. And it's consenting adults, right?
Yeah, so what I'm thinking about too is like, at least if you were to believe Bates is, the psychiatrist is, Bates is the voyeur, but Norman is the voyeur, and then Norma is the actual person that does the deed.
Right.
Which it's the same thing.
Right.
Like it's Norman Bates.
Right.
Norman did it.
Putting on a...
Yeah, like he did it.
Putting on a mask in order to do it, which is another trope in all the slasher movies, the mask.
Right, and I think in some ways when I think about porn, right, is I remember a lot, like in earlier, before I really got into recovery and really thought about and worked on myself on this relationship with porn, it felt like I was more of that voyeur that wasn't really committing the act itself.
Right.
Because there was a disassociation with my personality.
Right.
To where I'm like, hey, this is the Mac that everybody sees. This is the Mac that I present. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And then I had to disassociate myself when it came to looking at porn in secret and then not being honest about it because of that shame.
Yeah.
Because of what I was doing, but I couldn't really come to terms that I was doing it.
Yeah.
So then I had to disassociate from it.
Yeah.
So that's like when the line of questioning comes in, and that could be, if you're listening, like from your wife or your girlfriend or whatever. It's almost like when you don't tell yourself, hey, I actually did this.
Yeah.
Like I did the act.
Yeah.
Like I went in and I searched for it, I looked at it, I hid it. If you can't come to terms with that, which initially in my life that was the struggle.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that, to where you build up this disassociation with it, to where, hey, I'm just a voyeur.
Right.
Like, everybody does it. And it's wrong. There's something in you that's not resolved, but at the same time, you can't fully mesh the two together to say this is actually me.
Yeah.
Like this is who I am. It's a part of me.
Yeah.
It doesn't define me.
Right.
But at the same time, like you have to come to terms with this is like I actually did it.
Yeah.
In order for there to be any kind of change in who you are.
And we talked about that last night. You know,
Right.
I told you I don't like the passive voice when describing when bad things happen.
Right.
And I constantly hear it on crime shows and in courtroom dramas where the apology from the murderer is, I'm really, really deeply sorry about what happened.
Right.
It's not what happened.
Right.
It's what you did.
Right.
And we are in the habit of not taking possession of our own actions and the consequences for those actions. And I wish we could change the vocabulary a little bit. Interestingly, in the 1990s, Gus Van Sant, who is a very accomplished filmmaker, made a shot-for-shot remake of Psycho with Vince Vaughn as the Norman Bates character and Anne Heche as the Marion Crane character. I think she played Marion Crane. She might have played Lily, but I think she's the Marion Crane character. It was pretty famous. And in that film remake, there's only one shot in the film, or scene in the film. He splices in a kind of a coup de grace effect, they call it, where you put in an unrelated image that has not been provided for at all. There's one of those. He did one of those. Think of Citizen Kane when they go to the Keys to have the big party, and all of a sudden you get a cockatoo like squealing on the film, and it's kind of unrelated to anything in the scene that you're watching. That's like some Russian filmmaker sort of invented that as a psychological something. So Van Sant put an image of a sacrificed lamb just suddenly for no reason in the film at one point. But what I also noticed about Van Sant's the peeping Tom scene through the hole in the wall was that you were supposed to infer that Norman was masturbating because there was this very subtle motion. You see what I mean? A very subtle motion of his body. It wasn't obvious at all, but it's just enough. And I remember that started me on my track of rethinking Hitchcock's film. Because I thought, I don't think that's right. And so I went back and I watched that scene where Norman makes her the cheese sandwich and the glass of milk and comes down. She invites him into her room, but he steps back.
Right.
He's not going to cross that threshold. It would be improper for a single man to enter a single woman's motel room in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And he says, and incel, fear, right? I think it's expressed right there.
Right.
Like, it frightens him.
Right.
And he looks that way. And that's the way it's played. And he says, well, maybe the office would be warmer. Mm-hmm. And then they walk into the front office, and he says, offices are so officious, why don't we go into my parlor? It'll be more comfortable.
Right.
And then they have this really, really telling conversation.
And to add to that, too, I wrote down stuffed birds.
Right.
And just for the audience, maybe expand upon that a little bit. Like, this is a great scene early in the movie, right, where she pulls off the road, it's raining, he's there, there's every cabin's vacant, right? Yeah. And so she's the only one staying there, and which you were just talking about leading up, like the lead up to where they're having a meal together.
Yeah.
They're in the parlor, which is his favorite place.
Yes.
And there's all these
stuff. He calls it his hideaway, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Or somebody does at some point.
Yeah, it's hideaway. And this is interesting because I wanted to talk about this. You were talking about objectification and how, and that's deeply inherent within porn, right? Is the objectification of the woman, turning her into an object. And even if the porn involves other people, like everyone's an object for that the voyeur, for the sexual pleasure, to meet that need. And I couldn't help but think about it as you're talking about with the Norman Bates's passion is the stuffed birds, or that's his obsession.
Yeah.
It's I don't even know if it's a passion, it's more of an obsession, is being a taxiderm for these birds.
And he does say that. I think that word obsession is right, because she says it's a hobby. It's a strange hobby.
Yeah.
It's a curious one. She immediately says curious to sort of take the bite out of the word she just used.
Yeah, because she's unsettled.
She's unsettled, and she realizes that might be taken offensively.
Right.
And what is he saying?
He says a hobby is supposed to pass the time, not fill it.
Not fill it, yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because I think what you're talking about with objectification, I think in the same way the stuffed birds are an object, and they're taxidermed so that they don't decay. They stay in this life, like they look like they're still alive.
Right.
They're basically fossilized within this time, or maybe it's like the peak part of their life with like a trophy, right? Like that's like it's like I'm a hunter, right? So you have like the antlers, and you have maybe the taxidermed, the head,
Or even
on display. And I think in a way with porn, right, is it's like these trophies of desire that are objectified, and they're petrified like taxidermy in that place, forever young, or like whatever that whatever the person's looking for.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to find it, and they're like preserved in that young age or that desirable place perpetually.
Yeah. Well, but then the person that participates in that, the voyeur,
Right.
discovers very quickly that particular trophy, or that particular thing that he experienced in time, as frozen in time, because he can go back and look at it like it used to be magazines, right? Well, why was it that the dirty old grandpa or uncle had stacks and stacks and stacks of these magazines?
Just things change.
Well, because the one got boring.
Right.
And then I go get the other one because it's got more of what I'm looking for and different stuff. Like, do you see how the pull-in happens?
Yeah.
When you're a kid and you see a female nude for the first time, that's titillating.
Mm-hmm.
But just if you keep looking at that, it's not going to be titillating anymore. And Norman seems to have proceeded along a similar track.
True.
His hobby was taxidermy,
Right.
but he had to graduate.
Yeah, you gotta keep moving.
To the point where he stuffed his mom.
Right.
Now I'm imagining at the end of the film they say, "Do you have any other unsolved murders?" Yes, 2. Right. So I'm like, all right. The count then is 1, 2. If he did those, then Marion, then the private detective. So he's got 5. Makes him a bona fide serial killer. Oh,
Right.
6 because of the lover.
Yep.
Whose body's probably long gone in the swamp.
Right. The lover of the mother.
Yes. And there's a suggestion that maybe he killed his father.
Right.
Now, again, why would that be? Well, if he does suffer the Oedipal complex and he actually has sexual desire for her mother, it's the father figure that stands in with the threat of castration if he acts on that impulse.
Right.
Right? That's the Oedipus complex. We don't believe in it anymore. Back in 1959, 60, we did. Like, Freud was the bee's knees.
Right.
And so Hitchcock puts Freud right in there at the end, because that explanation of what's wrong with Norman is completely Freudian. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he kills, if his father died of natural causes, then according to the Freudian reading, that barrier was removed regarding his own sexual desire for his mother, which is deeply disordered.
Right.
And when she took up a new man, then there was another figure that was standing in between him and the object of his desire.
Right.
which is his mother.
Right.
And so but now he kills her too.
Right.
So I have trouble crediting the Freudian view as completely explanatory of what Hitchcock's actually doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and one of the reasons I do is because Hitchcock was a lover of the MacGuffin. And in film terms, the MacGuffin, Quentin Tarantino loves the MacGuffin too.
Yeah. I'm familiar with the term.
The MacGuffin is, and it's from an old joke, an old golfing joke. Two Scottish guys are out on the Highlands playing golf, and one's got this weird looking machine, and the other one's like, "What's you got there?" He's like, "Oh, it's a MacGuffin." "What's a MacGuffin?" "Ah, it's a machine to keep the lions out of Scotland." He's like, "There are no lions in Scotland." "Well, then it's working then." Right? That's the joke, right? But in film terms, it got adopted to be the driver of the plot. That's not really what the plot is about. That's what a MacGuffin is.
Okay.
And I feel like Hitchcock pulled the greatest MacGuffin in the history of films in Psycho, that it's not even funny. Because usually it's kind of a throwaway thing, like the golden glow that's coming from the trunk in Pulp Fiction is the MacGuffin.
Right.
It's the thing that everybody desires, but it's never quite identified. We never know really what it is, right? And it's the thing that warps us and that causes us to become depraved or whatever, right? So when I go back to the Gus Van Sant example, where it looks like Norman might be pleasuring himself while he's looking at this nude body and undressing to get into the shower. At that moment when I saw it, I was like, I think Gus got it wrong. And so when I went back and looked at when I was writing about it, I ran into an interview or a presser that Hitch did to promote the film. And a reporter asked him, "Hey, did you hear that this famous so-and-so psychiatrist is going to do a Freudian reading of Norman Bates? And write about it." And Hitch's answer was very interesting. He said, "Those idiots, don't they think I know what I'm doing?" And it completely made me rewatch the movie in a new way. I was like, wait a minute. That old psychiatrist thing at the end, we need to rethink whether we should believe that or not.
Yeah.
Because if we believe it, it means that he just took Norman's word for it.
Right.
Right?
And they kind of did that throughout the movie, right?
Yes.
To where as the audience, you already know what happened. But all these figures on the outside, like the sheriff, he calls Norman and talks to him.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, the private investor came," and then he left.
Yeah.
And he just took Norman's word for it. And as the audience, you're just like, "Oh my gosh!" Like,
And if this was
why would you?
And if this was a normal film noir, private detective femme fatale film, that is the way it would have ended.
Right.
With the private detective ending up with the money, and kind of nobody the wiser, and the girl not being able to do anything about it because she's the one that stole the money in the first place. He probably would have maybe had an affair with her and given her a portion of the money and say, "Look, you keep quiet, go your way, I'll go my way."
Yeah.
Or maybe they'd ride off into the sunset together.
Right.
That's Sam Spade.
Right.
That's Humphrey Bogart in a Sam Spade movie.
Okay.
Where it's a conflicted, beautiful woman who's done something wrong, but she doesn't tell him everything. And as he's investigating, he's realizing he's becoming ensnared in something that he didn't know about. So I love how Hitchcock beautifully gave us the film noir line. It never went away. It looked like a film noir when the movie began. And it kind of weirdly stayed a film noir if you're paying attention to the private detective. Arbogast.
Yes.
And the cop.
Right.
They're just giving everyday, conventional, the sooner you get the cops involved, the sooner you're going to get your daughter back and you get this whole thing. Why don't you come over on Sunday at dinner time and fill out a report? And just put it in the lap of the law. That's what he calls it. Just put it in the lap of the law. Don't try to do this by yourself. And of course, he doesn't know. And he doesn't know for the reasons that most people wouldn't know. Because our brains don't go there. We don't go in Germany directly to the Holocaust, even if we live 10 miles from a prison camp.
Right.
It doesn't occur to us that smoke we see from the chimneys every day is actually human bodies. That the ash that's falling on us are people.
Right.
Would it occur to you? And in fact, if it did, you do everything psychologically you could to convince yourself that it wasn't.
Right.
That explanation is too crazy. Right? And so I'm further enticed by the psychiatrist's sort of drippingly, knowingly arrogant kind of, well, you see.
He's so
And
confident.
he sits on the edge of the desk. And he's so insensitive to Lily, the sister.
Right.
So she's dead? Yes, I'm sorry. And then he goes on with
Yeah.
what he thinks is
but
important.
he didn't even wait. He
There's
just
no
kept going.
consoling, there's no human
He's
feeling.
like, yeah,
there's
that
no,
sucks. Let's go
Yeah.
with what I know about.
Yeah, it doesn't even pause to say that sucks.
Right.
He does say I'm sorry, but there's no. He thinks that Norman's story is the important one. So here you get the eraser of the victim again, and that's totally on purpose. But when Marion walks in to register for her room, when she's signing the ledger, she pauses, and we get a really tight shot, which is film vocabulary for hey, pay attention to this. And she writes down the name Mary Samuels. And fun fact, in the working script, her name was Mary Crane, not Marion, but they changed it because they found a Mary Crane in the phone book in Phoenix, and Hitchcock said, "Well, we don't want her getting a whole bunch of phone calls after this movie comes out because they think she's the real Marion Crane."
Right.
So, but she writes Mary Samuels, which is a strange mixture of Marion Crane and Sam Loomis. Samuels is the long name for her boyfriend's first name.
Oh.
And she's carrying a newspaper that has $40,000 in it, or she sees a newspaper, right? No, she's carrying one. And she writes down that she's from Los Angeles. And so Norman notices that, and when he reaches around to give the key to cabin 6, he switches his hand to cabin 1.
Yeah.
So my read of that is, oh, she's a California girl.
Which is a certain type of
Looseness, certain type of loose. California girls in the 1960s were available. She's a bottle blonde. You can see her roots. That was on purpose. She's not really blonde. She's a brunette, but she has changed her hair color to blonde to make herself more attractive. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, so he's reading that.
He's reading that like, she's one of those girls, right? But he hasn't had the conversation with her over sandwiches yet.
Right.
But he puts her in cabin 1.
And why does he do that?
Because that's where the peephole is.
Right.
So he's already planning on watching her.
It's really interesting though because initially he didn't pick that.
No. But
So
then when he noticed that she wrote down Los Angeles, you watch his face. He gets a little look on his face and he switches. His hands are like this, and he stops and he goes boom.
So that's kind of interesting because I think when you tie that into porn or sexualization, right? That's also something too, maybe to where once that transition happens, right, and you make that read, then it's kind of like game on.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, now I basically have permission.
It's almost like a green light.
It's a green
Well,
light.
it's the way you psychologically tell yourself when you bring up a porn site and there's a woman on there.
Yeah.
You get to assume that she's there of her own volition and wants you to see what she's doing.
Right.
It's an invitation.
Right.
But in the world that Hitchcock's dealing with, the invitations are much more subtle.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
And in fact, when he gets an open invitation from Marion Crane to come into the room, that stops him.
Yeah, he denies that.
He's not capable of that.
Yeah.
And yet, the very act of plunging a knife into a woman's body, penetratively, is sexual in nature.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a violent version of intercourse.
Right. Which a lot of porn is very violent.
Right. And so all of that going on, right? And it's another reason why I get excited about this movie, because I don't think people appreciate that in 1960, Hitch is already doing this, and he's doing it in such a subtle way that it gets past the censors. Like, if they had figured out what he was really showing us, there's no way this movie ever would have made it into theaters. But he was a genius.
Yeah, I mean, watching it today,
Yeah.
and what he was thinking about back then,
Yeah.
it blows my mind.
And I hope what it does is it inspires all of you filmmakers out there to go back and make movies like that. Not the hypergraphic ones.
Right.
Because what you don't show us is absolutely as important as what you do show us. I think it can make your movie far more powerful than because we've become numb
Right.
to seeing everything.
Yeah, we've been desensitized.
We've been totally desensitized, and maybe we could all come back to ourselves a little bit if we became more artful, because we do need to talk about these things.
Right.
We do need to make art about them.
Right.
Because they're extraordinarily important. You were talking about shame before, and I'm a guilty Catholic boy, and I'm telling you, the mechanism of shame is the proof that you are good.
Right.
Otherwise, you wouldn't feel it.
Right.
You wouldn't feel disappointment.
Right.
Unless Mac was a good person.
Right.
I mean, that deeply is what, in the end, you have to embrace.
Right.
In order to get yourself out of it.
Right.
And I think that's the kind of thing that we, especially parents, need to be the happy warriors, reminding, our children of. But back to Norman in this scene, when they have the conversation over sandwiches, in the working script. Now, this ended up not being in the film.
Sure.
There's a line that Norman says to her where he says, "I like you. There's something about you that I really like." And at that point, Marion obviously has decided that she's not going through with this.
Right.
And she stands up and he says, "Oh, you're not going already?" She says, "I'm very tired and I have a very early start tomorrow.
Right.
I got to go back to Phoenix to get myself out of a trap that I put myself in." Because they've just been talking about, he says he was born in his trap, but now he's used to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now I'm used to it.
Right.
We never get out of our traps. We just claw at each other and we never move an inch. And she says sometimes we step into our own traps. And he says, "I was born in mine, but I don't mind anymore." Which again, way ahead of his time.
And again, like just to loop it back into porn sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Is we feel like we're, like I remember feeling like that younger, to where it's like I'm just getting comfortable.
Yeah.
Like I'm just comfortable in this trap that I'm in.
Yeah.
Like it's just a part of my life. It's never gonna, you just become comfortable with it. And you become comfortable with this thing that is self-destructive and that is destructive for other people too, which I found out in my marriage.
And we live in a culture where we're talking about the rising number of women that are now. I just read an article the other day that apparently there is a subgenre of fantasy literature which is about women being ravished by literal
minotaurs.
And the woman that was writing about this, she's like, this is not, you know what I mean? What does this mean that women are actually after? They are feminists who say that they don't want to be dominated by men, and yet their fantasy is about exactly that. But because it's an animal, it doesn't count.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a man.
Right.
And the woman that wrote the article was deeply disturbed by it. And she's a feminist. She writes about sex all the time. She's like, this is not healthy.
Right.
This is a bad sign. And I read films that way too.
Well, with porn too, that's in a way it's different. But I think women's sexuality is different from men's, where we're more visual, and I think they're more emotional.
She touches on that, and
right.
Look. Part of the feminist movement was to say that women have been subjugated because they're not men, and so what they need to do is appropriate the positions of men, and the completion of that movement is in women becoming visual rather than emotional.
Right.
That was the target all along, is to unfeminize women to the point where they check their wombs at the door when they walk in to have sex. They abandon the very power that they have to transform civilization, which is the womb, which is having babies.
That's a superpower.
That's their superpower.
Yeah.
They are in charge of everything because they have that.
Right.
Okay? But when Norman, when she walks out and she says, he tells her his name, Norman, right? And then at one point she says Norman. Then when she's leaving, she says she's going back to Phoenix, and he goes, "Oh." Like, a little bit surprised. Back to Phoenix to get out of a trap that I set for myself, or I put myself in, right? And he says, "Well, I'll make breakfast for you. What time are you getting up?" "Very early, that's okay. I'll be here with breakfast." And then she walks out, says thank you, goes back to her room. He walks out of that parlor. He grabs the ledger book, and he turns it around, and he looks down and sees, because he just extracted from her name.
Right.
Miss Crane.
Yeah.
And that's not what she wrote down.
Right.
Okay, now, here's where my thing takes over. It's at that moment he decides he's going to kill her. Because he thought she was a fellow traveler.
So he was, like, if he didn't ask that name, or even if she said she was going to have breakfast,
Right.
do you think he would have killed her?
No, I think he decides to kill her because he just found out that she lied to him and she's not like him at all. So now she becomes a victim. Does that make sense?
And do you think that's like what happens sometimes with men towards women?
Well,
To
yes.
where we feel like,
But my point about
yeah, go ahead.
My point about Norman now goes to the subtleties of Anthony Perkins' performance.
Yeah.
Norman is not sexually attracted to Marion Crane. He's gay. That's why I think Gus Van Sant got it wrong. He was not masturbating.
Right.
I get it, but I told you, Hitchcock kind of cheated in this movie. He did things so that we would think certain things. But because the all-important moment in the film is the last scene, and guys, the last scene, the shot of Norman sitting in that blanket, on that blank white canvas,
Yeah.
with the shadows over his face, and the camera coming in, and the fly on his hand. How the hell did they get that? Because it's a real fly. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we're hearing voiceover of his mom's voice saying, he would have told them that I did it, and I couldn't let him get away with it.
Right.
I wouldn't hurt a fly. Like, I'm not even going to move my hand to touch that fly. They'll see. And then the last shot of his face, right, is of him looking at the camera like this and smiling knowingly at us.
Yes.
And I'm like, the psychiatrist is wrong. And what he's doing is he's angling to get himself into a psychiatric hospital because he'll get released from that. He's not going to prison. You see what I mean? Because he played him.
Right.
And the get up and all of that stuff is part of that. And then you get an Easter egg in that shot. Y'all look for it carefully because Norma's face flashes on top of his face. Her shriveled skull.
Right at the very end.
Boom. Right there. I'm like, was that the first Easter egg ever in film? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know the answer to that question, but that'd be cool if it was. But then the last scene that we see is of what? The car being pulled out of the swamp.
Right.
And I find that so and then the end, right? As we're seeing it just come out of the swamp. And I find that so telling that Hitchcock decided that pulling the car out of the swamp would be the last scene, not the Easter egg and not Norman's face. Because that could have very easily been it, right? But apparently Hitch had a reason. Why did he want us to be... So when I went back and looked at the film, I wanted to talk about that when the cop walks up to Marion in the car and he treats her in a certain way because she's a woman all alone on the side of the highway who's asleep.
This is kind of when she gets the money.
Before she sells her car and before she makes the wrong turn into Bates Motel. She's got the money.
Yep.
She gets really tired on the road, and then there's a fade to black and then a fade up, and the car is just there. And then a cop pulls up by it, notices that there is a woman in the car, and backs up, parks behind it, and then he comes up and he raps on the glass, right? And the way he treats her, because I asked my students, do you think if that was a guy that was sleeping in his car because he'd gotten too tired the night before that the cop would have told her he shouldn't have done that? No, he would have been like, all right, man, just want to make sure you're okay. See you later.
Right.
But because it's a woman, he gives her the third degree.
Right.
Right? He won't take his glasses off. And I want you guys to look at his face because his nose is a dick. I mean, deliberately.
Yeah.
It is a phallus. And he's got those mirrored sunglasses on. And she's like, what? Do I seem like I'm doing something wrong? Or what does he say?
Oh, gosh.
He says, sure seems like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Laugh, yeah.
He's like, what are you doing? And she's like, I got tired. I'm on my way someplace. And I can go. Have I broken any laws? Well, no. Do I seem like I did something wrong? Frankly, yes. And then she turns on the engine and he says, no, shut that off. He goes around to the front of the car and we get, again, another super close-up of the license plate. So there are 3 close-ups of license plates and that's the middle one, I think. No, that's the first one. And so I started thinking about it. I was like, all right, so in feminist parlance, right? Money is always a stand-in for male power, right?
Right.
And so when the guy with the $40,000 is shaking that $40,000 in Marion's face at the beginning of the movie, that's a stand-in for a common practice in porn.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
Again, Hitchcock's way... And I joke about it, and I'm like, money's a stand-in for male power. What is male power? Male power is semen.
Right.
And so that's why all of our rappers gotta make it rain. You gotta show that you got so much of that stuff you can waste it. Right? But what is the danger that the female form constitutes for the male? If I donate my seed to a female body, she can abscond with it like the $40,000 in her purse and do something with it that I can't control.
Right.
Which is why men want to control women.
Right.
So what would be the greatest, best way for me to be able to satisfy my sexual urges and not risk my seed? It's that license plate. The first three letters of which are A-N-L. Anal. And so that's scandalous.
Right.
And I can't prove it. I cannot prove that Hitchcock had that in mind. But if I couple that, the idea of men wanting to marry a virgin, but go to bed with a slut, and then wake up with a virgin again.
Right.
And when I couple that with the feminist idea that the patriarchy tries to hold women down because they are what Faulkner would call dark and threatful. The very dark and threatful thing they can do is abscond with our seed and then make something, a child, that is not a replication of me.
Right.
Like if males were in charge of human replication, well, hell, I'd just make a bunch of mini me's because I'm perfect. I'm perfect. But it's almost as if, as Faulkner says, nature won't allow it. Female nature will not allow us to duplicate ourselves. It forces us to be combined with something else that we can't.
Yeah.
And this goes all the way back to Greek myth.
Right.
And so when I couple that with the idea that Norman is actually homosexual, it unlocks something for me. That his sympathies for Marion is that she's a fellow traveler in the sense that she's not getting along with what society says a woman like her is supposed to do. And we like her for it. Don't we?
Yeah.
I like her.
Yeah.
I'm like, you go, rogue.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're telling you that you're not allowed to be an independent woman who pays her own bills and lives in an apartment and can fall in love with who they want. Well, wouldn't that be Norman's argument? And if his mother is the old Victorian cloying marm, she's not allowing any of that kind of stuff. In fact, she's going to live her life in denial that the weirdness of her son has to do with that. Do you see what I mean? And so his murder spree is more against the status quo. It's not sexual. It's revenge on a society that will not let him live. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And in fact, when it intuits that there's something weird about him, right? What does it do? It moves the highway. All right, creepy boy, you do your little thing in your basement over there. We don't want to look at you. To me.
Yeah, and
That's kind of meta, but you know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking about how I think people that young men, like when I was 10,
yeah.
the culture around being addicted to porn or watching it often and being problematic is like you're a creep.
Yeah.
And like you said, like be in your basement, like little boy lives in their mom's basement. That's just what I was thinking.
And
about
again,
as you were
back to go back to your thing about the incel, right? Because the attitude when I was younger was that was forbidden. I think I saw porn when I was growing up, maybe, I don't know, 5 times.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't something that was in our house. It's something you had to go out of your way to do. I just saw the other day driving across country from Memphis. One of those out of the way used to be a truck stop next to a Walnut Bowl highway thing that was a porn shop. I'm like, they still have those?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like where you go in and there are booths and stuff like so. Apparently there's still a culture that's clinging on over and against the internet.
Right.
But what that turned into too, by the time I got into high school, was that if we found out that somebody was addicted to porn, we were like, loser. You can't get a girl on your own. You know what I mean? Like you gotta do that. Like, have some self-respect, dude. Go out on a date.
Right.
Get a haircut.
Right.
Learn how to dress. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
Like, figure this stuff out. You socially awkward,
Right.
pervert.
Right.
And we don't live in that world anymore.
Right.
That porn's become so mainstream that it's just like, and in our professional psychology, completely normalized.
Yes.
It's not wrong. It's your preference.
Right.
And there's a way to do it healthily. So no wonder we have a pedophile problem.
Sure.
No wonder, because the goalposts just keep getting moved. And I'm not trying to be a school mom, but when you read culture through art and you read culture through pop, I think pop art, popular film, popular music is extraordinarily important. Because it's almost like a free market economy. It never really lies to you. It's always telling you what's going on.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was saying, like for politics, like, the next generation has already solved all of the issues that their parents are still bickering about. And so that's why we get the eye roll.
Right.
So like when gay marriage was a thing, I asked my son who's in the 6th grade, what do you guys think about it? And he's like, whatever. I was like, okay, well, that's over. Do you see what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's over. It's over because the next generation, which is one of the things as a professor I try to specialize in, pay attention to, because what do they say? Politics is downstream from culture.
Right.
We fail to look at culture.
Right.
Pay attention to culture.
Right.
But because we can participate in it, it's not just a force that we don't have any say over. Because we are artists.
Right.
We are podcasters.
Right.
We are readers of film.
Right.
And I'm one of those that wants to be a really good diagnostician so that when we see this happening in Silence of the Lambs, I can kind of trace it all the way back to Psycho. Say, oh, okay, now I see.
Right.
We went from Norman Bates
Right.
to Michael Myers to Freddy Krueger and Jason. And I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is kind of like the end of that. And then Scream kind of ends it. And then we get this outlier with Silence of the Lambs that is my generation saying no, it's not a pathology, it's choice. And then you get Saw, which are these miniature morality plays.
Right.
Where the victim is actually the perpetuator of their own punishment.
Right.
They get to choose.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then you get The Strangers, which is the Wrong Turn movie turned inside out, and Cabin in the Woods, which again is another kind of satiric send-up of all of the tropes that we've always used. But like the slasher films of the early 1980s were all morality plays.
Right.
What happens when you have sex when your parents told you that you weren't supposed to? You get killed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can see the pedigree. You can see that, and this goes back to my comment early on in this conversation, that film is a really, really new genre. Well, that means that the greatest writers and directors are always in conversation with each other. The best ones are. They've seen everything. And then they make decisions about, all right, what new do I have to add to this, and how am I going to deal with what I learned from this, and this. That's what I think about the greatest artists. And so, Psycho still hasn't gone away as a film that you have to deal with. Same thing with The Exorcist, which is in a parallel universe of that the Conjuring movies are all about.
Right.
And the Annabelle movies are all about.
Right.
Whenever you do a demonic possession or a ghost, you've got to deal with The Exorcist. Period.
Right.
You have to simply decide what it is. And I want to encourage you guys, if you haven't seen The Exorcist, don't watch it lightly. It is possibly still the scariest movie ever made. And I didn't think it would be, but when I went back and looked at it, I was like, oh, this stands up.
Yeah.
It stands up. Because if it turns out that that's true, it's terrifying.
Right.
Which again, going back to the voyeur thing, there's another aspect of porn that allows us to pretend that it's not real.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. Huge. That's a big part.
And it's why I think that, and this is dangerous, It's why I think a lot of consumers of porn start to gravitate toward the dark web, so that they're not looking at scripted fake stuff, they're looking at real stuff. And that is super dangerous. Don't you think?
Totally.
And the explosion of child trafficking and child porn, direct result of that, because when you're an addict and you demand more and more and more, when it comes to sex, we're talking about more and more and more extreme and distorted and disordered practices. And it's going to end in a snuff film. It's going to end in torture. It's going to end in...
Like a gangbang or gang
Yeah.
rape.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it too. It's not just child stuff, but it's people being trafficked.
Yes.
And it's people being held in this industry.
Yeah.
Like no one, I feel like a lot of people don't go into the industry because they want to.
No, that's something that I came belatedly to.
Right.
And I realized, oh, that's right. You know, it's almost like the stripper world, where there are a lot of women probably involved in it that pretend for a good portion of it that this is something that they chose to do.
Right.
Until the corkscrew has gotten them all the way down to the bottom and they realize they can't get out.
Right.
Like it was a trap.
Going down.
Yeah, you feel like I'm good, I'm independent, this is what I do by choice. And then you go to the audition for the Real Housewives of Orange County and you don't get picked.
Mm. Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I know that sounded like a leap,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah.
when you have a casual relationship with evil and you participate in it, but you pretend that it's by choice, and it's the same thing addicts always say, I can stop anytime I want. How many people say that and then they discover, no,
Yeah.
I can't.
Right.
I'm in, I don't have anything else. Going back to my comment about the Gen X thing,
Totally.
you know, you get to be old for longer than you are young. Well, pick up a skill that doesn't depend on your looks.
Mm. Yeah.
Because they're going to go away,
Right.
you know?
Kind of reminds me again of that stuffed birds analogy too. Of like with Norman, right? Like he starts with the birds,
Yeah.
and that might seem more innocent, and it is in a way.
Yeah.
But it's also it keeps going, like you were saying, it keeps progressing.
Yeah.
To where he ends up stuffing his mom.
Yeah.
And I think the same analogy can be used for porn. Like when you're younger and you stumble upon it, it seems like innocent.
Yeah.
And that it's maybe just a hobby, you know, something that you do.
But then all of a sudden you discover that it's filling your time.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you're organizing your day around
Totally.
when.
Right. Like if I was right now, like super in the throes of temptation and addiction with it, we'd be talking right now.
Yeah.
And I'd just be like, okay, when is this going to be over?
Right.
So that I can go to my camper and
Or for me to acknowledge very casually that I drink. You know, I drink red wine. I don't normally drink bourbon, but I love bourbon. So thank you so much for bringing me some.
Sure.
And folks, if you have a problem with it, this is what I did with mine, because I discovered I did a few years ago. I just stopped buying it, which gave me permission to drink it every once in a while.
Sure.
Because I discovered that if I had the bourbon in my house, like your phone, if it's right next to your bed at
Right.
2:30 in the morning.
Yep.
So what I did is I just stopped buying it.
Right.
And it solved the problem for me. I know that won't work for everybody, but for me, it absolutely did. But I also acknowledge freely as an adult person that, like, you know, I drink red wine, but I have a couple of rules for myself. I have to have all my stuff done, as Samuel L. Jackson says in Jackie Brown. You know, I don't have my marijuana until I'm done with all my shit. You know what I mean? And that's kind of my policy too. I have to be done with everything. And I don't like going out. I don't go out to bars. I don't want to be drinking and driving. I'm not doing that.
Right.
And so I was talking to somebody about it one day. I was like, yeah, and even when I have these long days where I don't really have anything I need to be doing, here's my rule. I can't have a drink of anything until the dishes are done.
Right.
Like, I have to have all my chores done.
Right.
And they were like, oh, that's kind of a good rule, you know. And I'm like, and I'm not doing dishes at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I wait until the end. That's the last chore that I do.
Right.
Is I do the dishes from yesterday. And then at that point, okay, I have permission. I don't need to go back into town.
So explaining that, what's the difference though between like having a drink and being responsible about it?
I
versus,
don't think. Well, I'm glad that you asked that question because it makes it sound like you could maybe manage porn,
right? Yeah.
In the same way, and I'm not trying to imply that.
Exactly.
Because porn. All right. So if I have one of the reasons I like beer, and I don't like marijuana. I've tried it, didn't like it, so that cured that. Didn't hate it, but I was just like, but what I didn't like about it is it wouldn't go away. Beer makes you stop drinking beer because you either throw up or you fall over. You're done, right? So it's almost has a built-in kill switch.
Right.
If you don't, I mean,
yeah,
I don't have a severe problem, so it's not like I've got to the point where I have to drink so much to get a buzz that now my liver is, I don't have that.
But like if you drank too much, like it could kill you.
Oh, absolutely.
Versus
that's why I stopped drinking bourbon because I was like, I was drinking it every day.
Right.
You can't do that from the time you're 40 years old until you are going to get cirrhosis of the liver. You are going to.
Right.
Like those are spirits. They're like 10 times more alcoholic than wine.
Right.
And beer, you know what I mean? And beer makes me full, so I like to have it after I mow the lawn. But here's the thing, with porn is more like a drug that doesn't go away.
Right.
So even if you try to organize your day around when am I free for porn, well, porn was with you all day long.
Right.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas if I have too much to drink
in the morning,
and then I get up in the morning, I'm like, sheesh, you know what I mean?
Right.
But what's the porn hangover?
I mean, it's more emotional.
Right.
And,
and
you don't get sleep.
But if you numb yourself enough, some people will even lose that. In fact, they will deliberately callous themselves.
Yep.
Is that a good expression?
Yeah.
Okay. It's because or accidentally callous themselves.
Sure.
And then one day they wake up and they realize they're in a dark, dark hole and they can't believe they're even looking at what they're looking at, and it's not working.
Yes.
Totally. I'm saying this like I know it. These are all guesses.
No, you're speaking to it because I think like I talk about that too. And like my brother, he helps people with addictions as a counselor. And he was saying that like people that there might be people that have addictions to like meth or heroin or alcohol, and it's always like porn. They'll typically have that addiction as well normally, and porn's normally hard to quit because it doesn't have that kill switch.
Right.
So it's something that like you could be teaching all day or I could be working all day, and at any time if I'm in private I can just go and look at it.
Yeah.
Versus like with alcohol or with some certain drugs, any drug really. Yeah. Like if you just got really drunk in the morning and then you went to teach, it's going to be obvious to the people that you're teaching. And that has real world ramifications.
It
where
does.
With porn, it's still going to have that ramification. And that's like what I think the lie is sometimes is it's not like it's only just me,
right?
Because it's something that you're doing isolated by yourself, and that's like what I thought when I was less mature was this is a me problem,
right? But here's the other thing, and I want to say this. I want to say this really loudly. If I hadn't gotten married and had kids, I'd probably be dead. Because I wouldn't have, when I got up in the morning, I wouldn't have had promises that I needed to keep that I made. And I'm a very stubborn person. And I am not going to fail at that. I promised my kids that I would be their dad for them. So I simply am not going to risk that for their sake. And I feel for people that don't have a for their sakes. Because it's my superpower. It's my great defense. And so when I live in a culture that is actively trying to absolutely decimate marriage and the family, I see what the devil's really going after.
Right.
Because those are the defenses that can't be penetrated.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
And in some ways, right, like on a broader sense for like people listening or watching, it'd be like that deeper purpose.
Yes. It's
for
a purpose outside yourself. I know my DNA is knit into my kids.
That's
and my grandkids.
A purpose outside of yourself.
Yes. It has to be a purpose outside of yourself. It can't be just you. And so if it's outside of yourself, then you humble yourself to it and you commit yourself to it. And you say, I'm not going to fail that. Even if it's for silly reasons. I make jokes. I'm like, guys, here's my deal. Okay? I promise myself at a very fundamental age that when the zombie apocalypse comes, I am not going to be the guy sniveling in the corner with a snot bubble coming out of my nose, even if I have to fake it. I will not be that guy. I promise you.
Right.
Because my vanity wouldn't even be able to stand that. So even if I have to fake being the one that's brave enough to face the greatest danger that we've ever, I'm gonna be right there on the front line.
Right.
Well, after a while, that becomes real. That becomes your personality. That's why nuns call the outfits they wear habits. Because if you practice it long enough, you're not faking it anymore.
It becomes your identity.
It becomes who you are.
Yeah.
Because you are what you do.
Yes.
And so if you have a big problem, don't forget this. This is the bourbon example. Sometimes the solving of a big problem, because here's what I did with the bourbon. I actually sat down with myself and I was like, do I need to go to a meeting? Because I really don't want to go to a meeting.
Right.
That's embarrassing. You know? And then I realized, wait, if I don't buy bourbon, I won't drink it. So I'm just going to stop that. It's easier for me not to leave my house to go to the liquor store that's 2 blocks away than it is to bring the bourbon home and tell myself I'm only going to have 4. I can't do that. So I got to do this.
Right.
And because I'm doing this, that decision is when I'm completely sober. It took 15 minutes.
Right.
Then I ran into the guy that worked at the liquor store one time. And he was with his mom and his dad at a diner. And I didn't recognize him because I hadn't seen him for 2 years. And he was like, hey, where you been, man? And I was like, I puzzled for a minute. And then I looked at his mom. She smiled up at me. I looked at his dad. They're both like 75 years old. And then I realized this is the liquor store guy.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, my wife asked me to change my habits. And the mom goes, good for you. He's like, well, stop by and say hi every once in a while. You know what I mean? And that was just kind of a nice thing. And I know it doesn't work for everybody, but I've told my kids this. I was like, if you have a big problem, try changing it by changing small things. Don't drive the same route to work every day.
Right.
Break your habits.
Yep.
And replace them with new habits.
Right.
And that little tick may just be enough to be a tipping point for you for this other thing.
Right.
You're like, oh, that wasn't as hard as I thought. Because, you know what I mean? When you try to eat the whole elephant all at once, everybody will tell you, I'm sure your brother the counselor will say, you can't.
Right.
You're going to fail every time. And after failing every time, 9 times, is when you give up.
Right.
Well, let them stand there. I'm not going to eat them.
Right.
I'm going to just...
Yeah.
And you say, I can't.
Right.
And then we go back to the movie The Edge. Why do people die in the woods?
Of shame.
Of shame.
Yeah.
And that's it right there.
Totally.
Oh, that'll be the next movie.
The Edge. Now that could be a different podcast.
Right.
Wink, wink. Yeah, I love what you had to say there because it strikes to the core of, I think, with recovery with porn is that purpose, like that thing that holds us true, that North Star, that thing that will, and even if, right, like, because even like being married, like we're still going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
There's still going to be
For
things
sure.
that we're just like, wow, I really screwed up.
On the daily.
On the daily basis. And I think in recovery too, like with porn, like I talked to my recent podcast about my relapses. Like it doesn't mean that you just, okay, I got this great purpose and then everything is perfect afterward. It just means that we're able to rebound quicker and we're not going to give up on like what that person is that we're becoming.
And look, the harder you try, the more the suffering becomes like the suffering in purgatory rather than the suffering in hell. The suffering in hell is never ending and there is no hope because you're done.
Right.
But in purgatory, you suffer like an athlete suffers. So if you take those small steps, even when you have relapses, and then you recommit. You know what I mean? I'm going to go back to the beginning. I started there. I'm going to go back and take those steps again. Well, every step that you take makes you just a little bit stronger.
Right.
And then the suffering that you're going through actually itself has a purpose.
Big time.
And that, every little victory is an actual victory.
Right.
And then one day you wake up, like I used to lie. I used to lie to my wife about little things because I was afraid of getting yelled at.
Right.
And there was a day finally where I was like, incrementally, I was like, you know what? That's not helping.
Right.
Just pull the scab off.
Right.
And if you made a mistake, and it changed everything.
Yeah, and I think
Because that was actually part of the problem.
And I think you were talking about this too, which might apply is like both you and your wife had cancer.
Yeah.
Right. And were able to overcome it. And how that in a way, right?
With a lot of help.
Yeah, and it opened the door, I guess, like broke down those barriers to where it's like, why would I even lie about this little thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it's quite a natural thing.
Right.
You survive cancer. I've always said this to my students. We live in a world where we live with the curse of air conditioning. We never actually have to be in 110 degree week. We walk from air conditioning to an air conditioner car. We drive to an air conditioner office. It could be 110 out. People used to say it was hot in Dallas. I'm like, who's outside? It's not hot in Dallas. First world problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my point is, that's a very dangerous situation to be in. It would be a good thing if every one of us were chased by a man-eating grizzly bear at least once in our life. Because we are being stalked. And I'm a spiritual person.
Yeah.
We are being stalked.
Totally.
So don't take it lightly.
Right.
So what happens when you get cancer is you learn a realism. And both my wife and I, timing was everything too. Our kids we're starting empty nesting. Then we get hit with that. We don't know how to deal with it. She teaches us how to do it. So when I got cancer, I was like, all right, no big deal. I just skipped all the bad stuff we went through with hers. And it made it look like I was like super, super brave. But that wasn't it at all. And my daughter said that to me. She said, you just acted like I got cancer. Don't worry about it. I'm handling it. I was like, that's because your mom taught us how to do it. I didn't know about it until she gave us that gift.
Yeah, totally.
And so then when I got the diagnosis, I was like, well, this is what I'm doing right now.
Right.
And I'd always promised I wasn't going to have a snot bubble in the corner, right?
Right.
So I refused it.
Yeah, and I think
I said, okay, here it is. Here's the disaster.
Yeah.
Now you get to show your students and your kids that you were telling the truth about yourself.
And do you think that's something, I think in when I think about when I took on the mantle for the podcast publication Porn Free Millennial, part of it was a lot of symbology around breaking chains. And I think about that a lot with porn is we all, if you're listening, if you're watching, you have the opportunity to break the chains in your family tree.
Yeah.
And I think obviously it's cancer, different, but at the same time, same to where porn can be so destructive like it was in my life to where in my time, that was something that educated me.
Yeah.
To where moving forward, I was able to see that. And I hope somebody listening or watching this can see it and be educated by it. Someone else that went through it.
No, and I think this is the whole purpose of all of this.
Right.
And I think what you've been saying about porn too is really, really helpful because porn is not like an alcohol addiction.
Right.
It's not like you know what I mean? In fact, it's more dangerous.
I think so.
It's more dangerous because these are psychological to an extent, but they're really physical.
Yes.
And porn pretends that it's physical,
right?
But it's not. It's spiritual,
right?
And so it gets its tentacles into you, and then it won't let go in a way that I think other addictions are treatable. They're So I don't want to sound like I'm speaking lightly of this stuff,
sure,
because I'm not,
right?
And I don't know all the answers,
right?
But I do say this: if you have made promises that are to people who legitimately are not you, well, then that's an acknowledgement that there are people that are not you. That the whole world is not simply an extension of a means to satisfy your desires.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Big time.
And to me, believing that, which is the culture we live in, is the greatest lie and the greatest burden that we've all had to bear.
Huh, yeah.
Is thinking that the universe exists for my sake. We are not that big. Our shoulders are not that broad. We're not that strong. That can't be it. But it could be. It could be that this granddaughter that I just met 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Depends on me.
Yeah.
And this is what I want to remind people who are suffering through things that you've talked about, that maybe I've talked about. I want you to try to tilt your head a little bit. Man, it seems so far afield of psycho, and it's really not.
And we'll loop back,
Well, but my point is that, this is what I believe. Don't forget that every face you meet is the face of a way that God loves you that you couldn't know unless you met that person.
Yeah.
But you're one of those faces too. So let it change the way you are. And you're one of those people for you. Like I had a young man come to me who was struggling with some stuff, and I said, why don't you do this? Why don't you flip it? Instead of beating yourself up about the fact that you failed again and you went off and you had sex with a girl that you had no intention of having a relationship with, why don't you sit down and imagine what it's like to be her for 1 minute? Picture her sitting on a bed, saying to herself, why does this keep happening? I gave them what they wanted, and they did it to me again.
Yeah.
And I was like, and take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
Like, feel real remorse for that.
Yeah.
Because you're not treating her the way you would be treated. Because you're large and in charge. You think you can just, and then you pretend,
Yeah. Like she'll get over it.
She'll get over it because she did that willingly too.
Right.
I have never met anybody who is happy being addicted to porn. I've never met anybody, I don't know anybody in the porn industry, but I imagine even the ones that are bragging about, like that girl in England, bragging about the fact that they're all for it.
Which,
that's a
plug.
That's a lie.
We did do a podcast.
We did. We did.
We've covered a lot of things.
Yeah.
But we did do one on that. Yeah.
But my conclusion, it's not 100%, but my impression is that I've never hookup culture. I've never met anybody who's happy in it. I've been around since the 80s.
Yeah, but because I was
and we're the ones who invented it.
Yeah. And I was a part of that for a bit too, and it just seems like, and I have some friends that are maybe a little bit younger that are in that dating stage.
Yeah.
To where it just feels like it's defeating.
Yeah.
And I have a great friend. If you're listening, you'll know who you are. But great guy, musician, just excellent dude. And it's like every time he goes on a date, it just seems like something is not working. And maybe it's a cultural thing or not. But I want to just give hope to people to keep at it.
Well, I'm a little bit old school, and I will tell you that I'll share with you this.
Yeah, and this guy, I want to say it's not like hookup culture, so to say, but I think people do that the rounds to where if someone isn't doing the rounds that way, it could harden somebody.
Well, I got to give all the credit in the world to my bride because, I was head over heels with that girl. And as soon as I found out that she wasn't dating the guy that she was dating, I was like...
Yeah, get in there.
I was getting there, right? But here's what she did. For 3 years, she made me date her whole apartment. We didn't go out to dinner without one of her roommates. Not once.
Yeah.
I was very frustrated.
Yeah.
But I looked back on it and I was like, damn. That's really good. Every time we'd have plans, we're gonna go out to this dinner, I'm gonna take you to this, and then when I would be on my way to pick her up, Molly doesn't have anything to do tonight, so can she just come with us? And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
So, she and her, and we're weird. We were out of step with our generation. Nobody else in our generation was doing that. We're Gen X. They were all doing the casual, but they wouldn't. And it made me fall in love with all of them in a way. Because I was like, this is so much better.
Yeah.
It's so much better.
Right.
It's like courting.
Yeah.
It's like, I gotta deal with chaperones, Mac.
And that's maybe a little bit more, you use the term old school.
No, it is.
Right.
But it's not something that would have occurred to me or I would have necessarily voluntarily chosen.
Totally.
But I was so in love with this girl that I was like, all right.
Yeah. But we see now today, right? We have dating apps and and this, and this, and typically the easiest choice almost is just to hook up.
Okay.
Because that's what you think is...
So let's just relate that to the vampire principle of evil. What's the vampire principle of evil? To get you to participate in your own destruction. What's the easiest way to do it? With your phone.
Yes. Right.
I mean,
yeah.
That's what that's for.
Right.
All the other features are just the teasers.
Yeah.
It's not a phone. It's a direct red line to the devil. So recognize it for what it is. Right?
That's a mic drop.
That's a mic drop. maybe we should end on that high note.
Oh man, that was really good.
Actually, I'm glad this conversation came to here.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole point of studying psyche.
Yeah, let's loop it back to psyche.
This is the whole point. This is why art is so important. Because it's not about itself. It's always about something else. It's always about what it means to be human in this world that we share. And so it's either a driver of culture or it's a reflector of culture. So I always make that distinction, like what kind of movie am I watching? Or sometimes they're mixed.
Right.
But it's one of the two. And in terms of film, what Hitchcock produced was a driver reflector of both culture and film. And what he did was seduce the culture. Because ultimately, if I had to say at the end of the day what Psycho is, it's a critique. It's a warning. Right? A very clever warning. But look at what he did to film. He commandeered an entire subgenre of film for the next 40 years.
Right.
Nobody could do anything other than the Wrong Turn movie.
Right.
That's the formula.
And do you think that people that picked it up fully understood what he was...
Not always. Because artists are very, very intuitive human beings often, as opposed to... So I joke with my good friend Tom, who's an artist. And he's like, yeah, you're always blah, 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 blah. I was like, my medium is words, man. I was like, you hide behind images, and if I say, hey, does the atomic explosion behind the pink bunny mean this? And you're always like, good. I was like, fuck you, dude. Because all I can do is say, Psycho means this. And everybody can traffic in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody can. I was like, that's my medium.
Right.
I don't do photographs. I don't paint paintings. I don't carve things. I don't know how to be a sculptor like my grandfather was. And he laughs at that. He's like, you're right. You're right. We artists, we do that. We mask it. And that way we don't have to defend it. We can let people say that their interpretation is just as right as...
Yeah.
It's like, you don't ever have to get nailed down now, do you? But you get to critique. Yeah. And secretly know, that's a little bit of porn too. Secretly know that this is what I'm really doing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Norman Bates. I'm going to pull that one. But, you know what I mean? So, but the only reason at the end of the day to study art, because it's the highest activity. Art is one of the few things that exist for its own sake. And if you want to connect that to porn, porn is the perversion of the thing that exists for its own sake. Because porn turns things that exist for their own sake into things that exist for you.
Yeah. Totally.
And it's a lie.
And people will call porn art.
Right. But notice what it's doing to you. Notice what the voyeuristic move is doing to you. It's turning you into God.
Right. Yeah, and a God that can pull up the most beautiful women a nanosecond.
And it'll make you it's Eros masquerading as Caritas.
Explain that. For
Eros, the god Eros, the god of that love, carnal love, lust, not superficial, but temporary, human, consummation. The promise that it makes you are the same as the promises of the god of agape or caritas. But it can't fulfill any of them. Because it's temporary.
Right.
So the move in the Garden of Eden through the fall is anticipation, which is the best part. Think porn. to consummation, which momentarily climax, but what's the last move? Lamentation, sadness. Because everything that you've dedicated to yourself is temporary. And that can't possibly be the underlying truth of everything. Because the underlying truth of everything must be not temporary, it must be permanent. And that's charity. Do you see what I mean? So that's from I'm just cheating and plagiarizing off of C.S. Lewis from The Four Loves.
Wow, that's a great way of saying it.
So read The Four Loves.
Read The Four Loves. The Four Loves.
So it's familial love, friendship love, erotic love, and then God love. Caritas. Which is the alpha and the omega of all the other three.
Yeah, and I think at least in my life with porn, it's disconnected me from that God love.
Right. Because it first masquerades, when you first started getting into it, it was masquerading as the thing that could give you what you wanted.
Right.
And it delivered.
Right. Yeah, as a kid, it was that escape.
But it doesn't last.
Doesn't.
It doesn't last. And Caritas lasts. You know, think about it this way. You know, I had this conversation with my son one time where he was at loggerheads with his dad, like you do. And like we get loggerheads with God.
Right.
And I said, look, I get it. I was a son too. You didn't get to pick me. You didn't get to pick when. You didn't get to pick under what conditions. You didn't get to pick this house, these circumstances. I said, but when you were born, I made a promise. And that promise was that I would take care of you until you were on your own. And I have kept my promise. And I'm going to keep keeping my promise. I said, so what that means for you, this is Old Testament, New Testament God, is that as long as you live in this house, you owe it to me. Because I kept my promise. And I didn't ask you to make one. And he was like, I love my sons. I love my daughters. He was like, fair enough.
Right.
And I don't know who inspired me to express it that way, but that was what he needed to hear. It's like, yeah, it's not your fault. I get it. It's not fair. It's not fair.
Right.
But if God didn't keep the promises that he gave to me in making me, when I didn't ask him to make me, well, then I might have an argument. But he did. And that implies an obligation on my part. Oosh. That's kind of big.
That's kind of big. Oh man, what a great conversation. Anything like as we're maybe concluding here that stands out? I mean, we've gone a ton of as we've done on our podcast before. We might start with the topic and then we're jumping into philosophy.
Well, that's what makes it so great, folks.
Which is what I love about it.
What do we have to tell them? Click, like,
click like, subscribe,
recommend, subscribe,
all that stuff.
And by the way, we're not in it to make money. I would do all of this for free. I'm not in it to monetize. I'm not like.
It's just it's enjoyable conversation. Yeah. And it's been a blessing to be able to meet you in person and to.
Well, same.
I think I've had multiple moments as we've been talking to where I'm just like, wow, I'm actually here right now.
Oh, that's really humbling.
Yeah, and like even thinking about like the 10-year-old me that stumbled into porn when I did, and to see like, hey, I'm like here right now with somebody talking about this,
and that's on you.
Yeah,
and that's a really great gift because that's not the kind of thing that most people would want to share.
Sure,
you know what I mean. Like maybe you solved it. Well, why are you opening that closet door again? Well, because you care. You realize there are other people that are out there that are in the throes, and I think that what you're doing is really, really, really good. So keep it up. That's why I'm here because I want to, if I can, I want to help.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm really glad you came. And I hope the audience is getting a lot out of this. I hope they start demanding that you and I just do it all the time.
I know, man, because we've done multiple podcasts. So I think we're getting closer to 10 now that we've done, and I think every time, right? Like I'm learning some new things, and I think the message always hits home with me, and I think the audience as well.
And look, if you're watching this and you want to you want to follow me on X, I post on X under my own name. I'm at Gregory Borse. I'm easy to find. I post my own super, super good looking picture on X. And I update it to make sure that people know that it's not a filter. I'm joking about that. But Mac knows. He's like, there's this meta part of me.
Yeah.
Because that whole world is about vanity.
Right.
And I kind of, you know.
I play into it
I play into it. And I am a professor. I am at my university. But I'm a free speech guy. And I can be kind of blue sometimes. I can be crass just like any human being. Because I'm not built. Now, when we're having a conversation like this, I'm very good at knowing what my...
Yeah.
Who's my audience? Is it my students in my classroom?
Right.
Well, I'm not doing that in there.
Right.
Is it me and Mac for a general audience that wants to think about Psycho and movies, but also might be interested in the addiction of porn and how detrimental it is to the human soul? Then I'm gonna tailor my conversation to, you know, I'm not gonna be cursing or, you know, but I might on X. I'm just trying to warn you guys.
Yeah,
sometimes I do. Like, fuck off, dude.
We'll leave that in.
Right. Don't beep it. But yeah, if you want to follow me, you know, give me a follow and see what you think. You might hate it. I'm fine. I have very thick skin. I'm good. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not in it for the money. Yeah. Although if I could make, you know,
sure, why not?
Why not? I'd be open to it. I'm a free market capitalist guy.
Well, something that, and I know we're concluding, and hopefully this doesn't enter into, or if it does, whatever, another 20-minute conversation. But because I was just saying, as you were talking, like opening that door, and I think in all of our lives, we've talked personally about things. Like we all have something in there that we like. That defense mechanism tells us that I don't want to tell anyone about this, and I'm ashamed of it, and I made this mistake, or I did this thing that was really tough, not just on me but other people. And I think personally, for anybody, whatever that could be, I think at some point, right, like we have to come to face it, but also that story. It can turn into something different, I think, if we face it, but also that can be provided to other people to help them or to heal, or just because if it just sits there and it sits there in the darkness, I think it grows in the darkness.
Well, how rare is it? Because this is the hero fairy tale. How rare is it for somebody in the middle or at some point in the story to realize that they are on the wrong side?
Right.
And then convert.
Right.
That's beautiful.
And it takes a lot of...
And it takes bravery.
Right.
Because I've said to my kids, if you are willing to live by principle, live by your principle. The world is going to punish you.
Right.
Get ready for that. Expect it. Expect it so that it's not a surprise when it comes.
Right.
Then your attitude can be like your dad's, which is, oh, so that's what that was going to look like. Okay. I'm good. I'm up to it.
Right.
But here's the other thing, because I just said something, then you just answered about the door. Man, not only open the door, prop it open, because light is the disinfectant. So open it up, do what Mac does, open it up, leave it open, shine a light on it, and that will actually kill it.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that it's easy.
Demystify it.
Right, exactly.
Demystify it and make it come into light. Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about it in a different way, people who are dedicated to that, porn, are really just dedicated to spending their time rubbing stuff, which is ridiculous.
Which I've written poetry about.
Right. It's ridiculous.
Right.
And if you look at it as absurd, as an adult, you might be like, oh my gosh. You know what I mean? Like, grow up. Like, okay, there's a place for that in your world.
Sure.
But you know, and we're not going to start a whole conversation on that.
Right.
But like, if you start to think about what the place of things is in the hierarchy of values for individual lives to be good, There is a place for that. I'm not talking about porn. I'm talking about sex.
Right.
But then you start as a philosophical, serious adult. Well, how do I determine, knowing that I've got that in the right place? Now, I'm going to give you the short answer from me. It's marriage. That's it. No other possibility. Marriage. Lifelong commitment to somebody else that you're willing to dedicate your entire body to, and vice versa. And then you're not going to be running into these issues.
Right.
Everything else is pretend.
Right.
Everything else is temporary.
Right.
Everything else is me faking that it doesn't really matter.
Right.
You know what?
Yeah.
That's that lamentation part. It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
Right.
Why did I do that again?
Right.
What did I really get out of it?
Sure.
Whether it's just you alone or with somebody that you have no intention of.
Right. Mary.
And so I know it takes a while maybe to think up to that point, but man, I know so many really, really good people that just leapt to it and did it and are so good, and they're 45 years married and holding each other's hand as they walk through the Walmart again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, damn, I wish I could be those people.
Yeah, and I think in this,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think in this modern culture, right, it seems like such a risk.
Yeah.
Like it's almost such a risk to yourself.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna have to give yourself to somebody else, and you're gonna have to sacrifice.
Well, and plus you're gonna have to suffer what Hamlet calls the slings of the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Right.
Because the world's gonna say you're some sort of old-fashioned fuddy-duddy, and what's wrong with you?
Right.
Well, that's them projecting and rationalizing what they already know internally is a failure anyway. But if they can get a whole bunch of people to go along with it, they can at least feel good about themselves.
And that's
for about 5 minutes.
And that's like with porn.
Yeah. No. I mean, exactly.
Totally.
Exactly.
It's where almost people look at you like you're weird.
Yeah.
If you're saying, hey, I don't look at porn.
Yeah.
And I think it's destructive.
Yeah.
And I do my best to better myself.
And so to bring the ending of it all back to Psycho.
Yes.
The only way it works for Norman is if he can keep it a secret, but crack a door open to the outside world so that he can continue to have the victims that he needs. Right?
Yeah.
And then die a happy, old, lonely man in the kitchen of his mama's house, whose corpse nobody finds for 6 months. And it all ends in emptiness. That's the nihilism you were talking about. And that's what he's chosen. And he's good with it. That's that smile at the end of the movie. Yeah. I will unmake the world, and that will ultimately be my revenge against God. Another mic drop.
I think that's a mic drop. Wow. I think that sums it up pretty well.
Yeah.
And I think that sums up like what the theme I wanted to go after a little bit, right? Because we talked about a lot of things, but I worry about like the younger men and the younger women as we're talking about this, right? Because there's a rise in that with.
But if you and I could grab the younger men, then younger women would start to see hope, I think.
Totally.
If they started to see that there were younger men who were willing to treat them right and to respect them, because the younger men respect themselves and their sisters and their moms and their nieces and their cousins.
Right.
And start to look at girls like, oh. And that's what happened to me. It wasn't getting married, it was having my first daughter. And then it just clicked. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Every girl I meet is somebody else's sister, mom, or daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Well.
And that's what porn, a lot of.
It erodes.
Because a lot of that's popular, right?
No, and that's why incest porn is
or even with like stepmothers.
Well, no, stepmothers is the last step toward full-on incest, and I promise you, the next thing that comes will just be full-on.
Right.
Because right now that's niche.
Right.
And I only know that because I got an offer for somebody to publish my first novel, and we won't talk about that. I don't have a publisher. It's a great novel. But I went and looked them up to see what they published, and they published that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not with pictures,
right?
But like And I'm like, yeah, I can't have anything to do with this company.
No way.
You know,
What's your book?
it's called The Incorruptibles.
The Incorruptible.
We'll do a podcast if you want to do that sometime.
Yeah, that would be
I'm working on a way to get that published, and I think I'm going to do it myself. And I think this is the ideal format, along with my ex, and along with other podcasts, for me to actually build a base
right.
that would be willing to read it a chapter at a time, as opposed to just putting it out as a full book.
You can do that on Substack too.
I can do it on Substack. I could do it on, and there are a couple other places. But there's one place that I can do it where, you know, maybe you could read the first 10 chapters for free, and then beginning with chapter 11, there's a fee.
Yeah.
But at the end, you could do a print on demand.
Yeah.
And you could actually get the physical.
Yeah, I can show you how to do that through Substack.
And we're doing it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that, I guess, to wrap it up for the third or fourth time, we could just keep talking.
Yeah. We're gonna, but we got a football game.
We got to watch LSU play.
Yeah.
But I think that's what really struck me. Like my big thing watching this movie, right? Really, for the first time, it seemed like I was just struck by Norman Bates.
Yeah.
And just how his mannerisms, how he stood. It was very unconfident. Confident in a way, but not like in a
yeah. There were those few moments where he was smirking at the fact that he knew what they were trying to do, and he was going to be smarter than they were.
Right.
But that was the only. There were a lot of weird vulnerabilities.
Like with the PI when the PI is pressing him,
and when Sam comes in and is pressing him, he gets very defensive, and you can see
Sam, like the masculine man,
the masculine boyfriend, who is physically the same type as him.
Right.
Dark hair, dark eyes, good-looking faces.
both the same looking.
But
yeah.
Sam's he's the beefier guy. He's very confident, and Norman, he starts getting jittery.
Right.
You know, he starts getting nervous. He starts stuttering.
Same thing with the private investigator.
Same thing with the private investigator.
And the private investigator is like lesser in stature, older guy, but he's confident in how he's questioning him, how he's pressing him.
Which goes to my argument that Norman's problem is with what society says a man is, as opposed to I'm sexually attracted to Marion Crane.
Yeah.
I don't like her because she's going along with that society, because she's going back to Phoenix because they're going to get her in trouble for being more like me.
Right.
That's what.
And I think with porn too, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's an internalized belief as this is what society thinks a man is.
Yeah, but this is how stupid the devil is. Porn is only attractive as long as it's transgressive and underground. As soon as you make it not underground, it loses all of its cachet. Which is why we then have to graduate to rape and murder. We have to. Which is what the devil wants.
Right.
So, be careful.
Yeah, be careful of the way, and I just say, like, even like less than that, right? Like, just with my life and my marriage,
Yeah.
like that's what happened. Like, not going deep into that stuff, but the destruction of a marriage.
Right. But as a Christian, then, all right. So if marriage is the sacrament that was instituted by God in the Garden of Eden, after the fall, for the sake of the fact that we are fallen creatures, right? Because we're not going to be married in heaven. We're going to be married to everybody in heaven.
Right.
We're all going to have the perfect relationship, right?
Right.
So there's no need for marriage. That's why it's till death do us part.
Right.
It's not forever.
Right.
So if that's the case, and you and I are both Christian, and we believe that, well then, yeah, porn was the mechanism by which that got attacked. And it worked.
Right.
You should feel honored. Right?
Right, sure.
Because the thief at least compliments the person that he burgles. You got good stuff. The devil looked at you and said, you got something good I want to ruin. How do I need to do it? Let me think on map for a minute.
Right. Totally. Yeah, and that was something that I latched to early on as something that was helpful to me to help me fill that need.
And what was it for me? It was my vanity.
Right.
And what enticements did he put in front of me?
Sure.
Hollywood.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then some better angel sent a rescuer, and you've met her. And it saved me.
Right.
Because I am absolutely sure I would have been lost.
Sure.
It would have been so easy.
Yeah.
Like on the plane ride back from LA to Dallas, I was upgraded to first class on an American Airlines flight because the frickin' stewardess thought I was Tom Cruise. And she gave me free alcohol the whole flight.
Dang. So that was like the red carpet.
Don't tell my wife I said that. She hates that story, but it's true.
Should we cut it out?
She asked for my autograph.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized I'd been treated that way for that reason.
And that's like the red carpet for the vanity.
That's
Just like, hey,
doors open.
hey, look at this, man.
Come through.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to turn out like P. Diddy.
Right.
I'm going back to Dallas.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about P. Diddy then, but like
Right.
that's the way it works.
Yeah.
That's the way the demonic machine works.
Sure.
It offers you all of these satisfactions that it cannot possibly.
Yeah, and in your example, it's like this extroverted.
Yeah.
And I think with like porn, it's like an introverted.
Yeah.
It like pulls you, it disconnects you.
Yeah.
To where like that's like the red carpet is like the vanity and like being famous and all this stuff. And I think with porn, it's like the red carpet of like you are within your own devices, you have total control.
Well,
And you're in this comfortable
but I also think
place.
it's the same side of the same weapon.
Totally.
Because celebrity gets used as the beautiful, enticing image that sells the thing that you're talking about. They become the ambassadors of this is the way the elite operate.
Right.
And we're different from you because we have access to every possible pleasure that you could possibly desire. And so that gets used on TikTok to entice you into this other thing, which gives you access to the inside story of what's really going on at P. Diddy's parties. Oh, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they are. It's a serpent eating its own tail.
Right.
And that's why periodically they eat their own, because in order to sustain it, every once in a while they have to pop their head up and look like they're for propriety. So yeah, Diddy's going to jail.
Sure.
Because they don't care.
Right.
They're like, let him have Diddy. Let him have Epstein.
Right.
Let him have him.
Right.
Because we need to sustain what we're doing.
The machine.
Exactly. And everybody is worm for the grist.
Yeah, and I think we're fighting back against that.
I hope so.
I think it's a machine for the good.
At least being able to talk about it in a way that lets people know what they're looking at, I think that's the good we can do.
Totally.
So I totally expect to be assassinated within the next 7 years.
for the psycho porn-free millennial.
Yeah, exactly.
Second year inaugural Halloween special.
Halloween special. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween, everybody. So hey, it was an honor to talk to you.
Absolutely. And thank you for coming. It's an honor for you to come stay at my home.
Yeah.
And we will do it again.
We will do it again. And everyone, thanks for listening. And Psycho, an amazing movie. I was just blown away by it, and blown away by being able to watch it with you. And
well, I appreciate that. I'm just a movie lover. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and then we were able to do a podcast about it.
yeah,
And loop it into the theme of helping people with porn.
yeah.
And
I hope it does. I honestly do.
yeah, and I think just as we conclude this down, I just want to say thank you everybody for listening. And yeah, check Dr. Borse out on X, and I'm really trying to get him more on Substack.
Yeah, I have a Substack, but I haven't written in it for a long time. But I promise, because I like Max so much and I respect him, that I'm going to go back to that form.
Yes.
I was using it kind of as a placeholder, but I'm going to start treating it more serious.
I think Substack is...
And I'm going to put my novel on there.
Yeah, do
That's
it.
a great... I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
So because Substack is... I think it is like the more wholesome social media. And I think-
and speaking of consenting adults,
yeah.
you choose. You become, and then it gets to just be...
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
So follow Dr. Gregory Borse, and then this
And
is,
Cale Zeldin,
and
my
Cale
good
Zeldin
buddy.
on the underneath.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll just say it, whatever. But I've never said this on a podcast before or a YouTube video, but like if you do actually like the video,
Yeah.
like it,
Like
please,
it, yeah.
because I think a part of being on YouTube or just talking about this stuff, like I do feel like there's like a throttling effect where it doesn't really get out as much because of the topic we talk about, which is kind of ironic because we're actually trying to help people with it.
Yeah, and let let it be the Brett commercial. You tell a friend, they tell two friends,
Exactly.
they tell two friends.
So if you enjoyed this, share it, like it, leave some comments on what your takeaways were. Watch the movie Psycho.
Yeah.
And I think what Dr. Borse and I might do in the future potentially is more like some movie things, maybe some more commentary, because I know in order to keep this podcast below 5 hours, we had to like not talk about everything because there's a lot of things about the movie that we still didn't really discuss.
Yeah.
But hopefully you got a general idea about the movie and how it ties into the theme of what we were talking about today. And yeah, everybody, happy Halloween. And also, right, just break free, stay free, be free.
Stay rogue and keep your phone.
Keep fighting good fight.